listening. It is a Would You Rather Wednesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. I am Glenn Clark. He is Griffin. And Griffin, you want to let me know if they're going to play baseball at 1 o'clock today? You go right ahead. Hang on a second. This is my new favorite segment on the show. I asked Griffin about the weather for the baseball game, and he looks out the window.
I don't think they're going to start playing at 1 today.
No?
I don't think so.
Well,
I mean,
because you know this is what it's going to look like at 1, or?
I think there's a good chance it looks like this at 1.
But you're basing that on?
Well, the way it looks right now.
Right, looking out the window. That's our chief meteorologist, Griffin Beck.
Let's see if we can. I mean, there's a flood watch right now.
Okay, that doesn't seem ideal. Well, here or there?
I guess that's a good question. Yeah, maybe it's here for sure.
Okay.
I would think it's the same. It's all right, let's see this. Yeah, man, jeez, it is not looking great.
Okay.
It's gonna be at least so obviously 100% chance right now, but you can tell that by looking outside. But at about 1 o'clock,
again,
I
can also look out my window.
They're saying 60% chance of rain at 1 o'clock.
Right.
And then let's see.
Well, when is there?
It's gonna get heavier at 2 and 3 o'clock. There's no break. There's no
break. What about later today?
Let's see about the radar.
Yeah.
By 7 p.m. is the lowest, where it says 30% chance of rain.
All right.
And then if they want to wait until 1 a.m., it should clear up by then.
Well, now wait a second.
Should clear up by then.
Might be onto something. I'm not sure why they wouldn't have just announced they're moving it to a night game. I'm not really, unless they're just so convinced they can't play at all today that they're like, hey, we're going to go through the motions, and at noon we're just going to cancel the game. But why not, man, we talked about this yesterday. Why not just last night tell everybody, hey, look, don't bother showing up here at 11 tomorrow morning, whatever it's. I don't know what time, if you work there, you have to get there now, I would assume, for if you work there.
Yeah, because the game starts in 3 hours, or it's supposed to.
But the gates open, like, what, 1.5 hour and a half before the start of the game? Or?
Yeah, maybe do you think it's different for day games, or like if for 1 o'clock starts?
They open at noon, you're saying? I don't know. That's a good question. I never show up that early. I haven't gone to batting practice since I was a child. I think it's an hour and a half still. But I would think that if the gates open an hour and a half before the game, that you got to be there by like 2.5 hours. I would think you would want everybody who works there to be there.
Right, yeah.
An hour before the gates open at least. So, whatever. It doesn't look good. That's all we know. It doesn't look good. But we'll try to keep you entertained. This morning, we got a lot to do on the program. Coming up a little bit later on, Daniel Jeremiah, of course, former Baltimore Ravens scout. Now with the NFL Network, their lead NFL draft analyst. We will catch up with him, talk about what the Ravens might do here in a couple of weeks. Speaking of the NFL draft, the Baltimore native slated to go the earliest in the NFL draft. Early second round, late first round. Chris Braswell from Alabama, the St. Francis alum. He had 8 sacks last year. Not sure if you've heard, the Ravens have kind of a need in the edge rush department. We'll talk to Chris Braswell. I don't understand why Chris Braswell, the cap is, and I'll ask Daniel Jeremiah, the cap is everybody thinks he's early second round. Very few people think he's, you'll say, could it be Chris Braswell? I'll be like, yeah, it could. What? Why not? Hey, he's more of a second round guy. I'll ask Daniel Jeremiah about it. Mike Locksley is going to join us in just a couple of minutes, Maryland football coach. They're doing something really cool this weekend where they're hosting a practice at Morgan State, and I'll let him, explain a little bit more about how that came about and why they're doing that. Also, we'll get caught up on they got a quarterback competition and talk about some of his NFL draft prospects this year. And before we get out of here today, we'll also do County Sports Zone Radio, as we didn't get to do that yesterday. Wes Brown, we'll check in with him. It's also Would You Rather Wednesday, presented by Glory Days Grill. Glory Days Grill, of course, has the delicious ribs and wings. They also have those cheese bites. That's a new popular thing, the cheese bites, and you can go get those right now at the Sriracha Ranch at your neighborhood at Glory Days Grill. But the scenarios are up, facebook.com/Glenn Clark Radio. We'll get them up here on Twitter in a minute. All right, let's update the...
Right.
That was That was kind of pathetic. I mean, I'm not really trying to take any shots, but three hits felt like Bob Uecker in Major League. That's all they could manage was 3 measly hits. It was unpleasant to say the least last evening. And ironically, of course, Colton Cowser in his first start gets 2 of the 3 hits because of course he does. Because of course. I got nothing really to say. This is baseball. These things happen. That's the way that it goes. I did not have Alec Marsh dominates the Orioles on my bingo card. I'll blame the weather, right? I'll just say that it's unpleasant. Nobody likes to play in those conditions, and that's what happened, and that's why we definitely can't play in those conditions today. I don't know. It was bad. The bigger storyline, of course, being Cole Irvin was bad, right? Like that. You can live, the bats go silent for a night. That happens. It's baseball. The Cole Irvin thing plays into what our expectations were. This is the confirmation bias thing that I was talking about yesterday. We have serious fears about Cole Irvin as a starting pitcher. And the guy that made his first start of the spring, we were like, ooh, look at these new pitches, and he's been hanging out with the pitching ninja, and whoa, this is something. And we enjoyed chatting with him, and he gave us some thought to all of that, and that was great. But more than we don't, and especially as spring went along and he was getting roughed up again, we have serious fear about Cole Irvin. The fact that Cole Irvin comes out and kind of gets shelled in his first start really plays into the serious fears that we have. Now, the comforting part for some would be, hey, it looks like John Means is fairly on track and won't miss that much time. And, you know, he's already pitching at Norfolk. He can't be that far away. Maybe it's less than a month. All good. For some people, there's still the possibility that Kyle Bradish could be part of the equation. Because I would say that if there's one pitcher that's in the rotation that we really believe could be a genuine help out of the bullpen, it's Tyler Wells. That Cole Irvin would slate to be just sort of another long man out of the bullpen. And not to say that you can't use another long man out of the bullpen. I guess the question would be, are you believing that Mike Baumann is more of a specialist now and no longer a long man out of the bullpen? Because I guess if that's the case, that could make Cole Irvin more valuable in the pen. But for the most part, in the pen, he comes off kind of as just another guy without focus being given to the idea of him being a specialist. I'm not sure how much I think Cole Irvin has to offer as a one-inning pitcher or a positional pitcher. Whereas I think a lot of us believe that Tyler Wells would have a lot to offer in that type of role. So if John Means is coming back, it would kind of be nice if you were confident in Cole Irvin to be in the rotation, because then that might allow for Tyler Wells to go into that specialist role that a lot of us think he would succeed in. So I know I'm projecting. They're not going to kick Cole Irvin out of the rotation after one start. But at the moment, he's definitely the guy on the hot seat. And that was bad. Flat bad from Cole Irvin last night. At some point, will have the conversation about the bats. Because I was thinking about this last night, right? Like, today, you're not talking about making changes to your lineup because in 2 out of the last 3 games, the offense has kind of been silent. The 2 games before that, of course, they scored about 1 billion runs. It's entirely too early for any of that type of conversation. But I do wonder when it's not. Like, what's the date in which it's no longer too early to talk about it? And I'm not suggesting it's this week. I'm not suggesting it's even this month. It is complicated. Everyone is looking at the box scores in Norfolk. Everyone is seeing a group of guys that look like they are probably Major League Baseball players that are playing in Norfolk and succeeding. Small sample size there, too. And again, it's against AAA competition. But it's there. And that juxtaposition is real. I'm not sure when it is that the Orioles first consider. Some of this, obviously, and this is an old baseball adage, it takes care of itself, right? There's this belief in baseball that when you're dealing with some of these questions, the season's so long and so many things happen. Somebody gets hurt, and when that person gets hurt, you say, well, look at that. What a coincidence. This guy was raking at AAA, and we wanted to get him a look at the Major League level. How about that? How about that working out the way that it did? But I don't know that it's obvious because even at the moment, let's say one of the outfielders that were to happen with, you would think that Colton Cowser would be the guy that would benefit from it, not any of the guys at AAA. So I don't know what the date is when you start looking at something and saying, hey, is this working? Is there a bigger problem here?
I think what stuck out to me was a little bit like the defense. I thought Jordan Westberg kind of proved that. I feel like he should be the everyday third baseman. The way his approach at the plate, and also how much longer do we trot out Ryan O'Hearn in the outfield as well?
Look, Ryan O'Hearn's definitely not an outfielder, and that's a weird. And I feel like Santander
deserves to be. I mean, he's a very good, in my opinion, a very underrated right fielder. And
then it goes back to how are you getting Colton Cowser in the lineup? And this is the difficult part, right? It's going to come up today in Would You Rather Wednesday. The Would You Rather, the Colton Cowser part of this is tough because you want him to play. Yes, Cedric Mullins off to a slow start. No question about it. But still covers more ground in center field, is a guy that you're comfortable with. Austin Hayes, you're comfortable with. And yes, he's off to a slow start. When does that stuff matter? Is the answer that Colton Cowser, you got to figure out if he can play right field? Is that the answer? Because if you're going to get him in the lineup, he's going to have to play. He's going to have to offer you something defensively. I'm in agreement about Ryan O'Hearn. There's no reason for Ryan O'Hearn to be playing in the outfield. There's no reason for that. But Anthony Santander has the flexibility that you can play him at first base. You could DH him and feel good about that, but then somebody's got to play right field. So is the answer that you move everything on those days? That on those days Austin Hayes plays right field? Cedric Mullins plays right field? It would seem to negate part of his value.
Right.
And again, I'm not overreacting to Austin Hayes or Cedric Mullins being off the slow starts. There will be a time, whatever date that is, I don't know. But it ain't 5 games into the season. It ain't 6 games into the season. I don't know what the date is when you start reacting to, hey, what's going on with these guys? They're hitting 200 or at the moment less than that. But it ain't a week into the season. You're not making decisions like that at that point. Hopefully there will be another baseball game today. If there is, it would be Corbin Burns Day, which should be a holiday here in Baltimore. That's the other part that would be really problematic about today, is if they were to somehow start the game at some point.
Oh, yeah.
With weather being a factor, you would almost, you don't mess with a Corbin Burns Day. The possibility of, you wasting a Corbin Burns spot in the rotation on a day where he throws 2 innings and then there's a lengthy rain delay and you can't bring him back out there after that is troublesome and cannot be an option. Today's show is brought to you by Atman's Deli in Harbor Point. It's everything you love about Atman's Deli. The corned beef piled high, the hand-rolled bagels, the desserts, the soups, all of it. But now it's in a location in Harbor Point that also has a full bar. AtmansDeli.com for daily specials. You love Atman's Deli. Check out the new Atman's Deli in Harbor Point. All right, joining us this morning, someone we like a lot here on GCR. He is, of course, the head football coach at the University of Maryland, and his team is doing something really cool. They're mixing it up with a bit of a road trip during spring football that he's going to tell us about. He is Coach Mike Locksley, and he's back with us now here on GCR. Coach, it's Glenn. It's always great to catch up with you, man. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning.
Glenn, what's up, man? Thanks for having me on. Appreciate you guys doing this for us.
Man, always good to talk to you, sir. I really genuinely, you know how much I care about Baltimore and how much my grandmother taught at Morgan for years. It holds a very special place in my heart. I really think this is incredibly cool. Can you give me some background about how this came about and why this was something that you wanted to do?
Yeah, it's pretty easy. It started for me being at Illinois under Coach Zook, and when you think of the University of Illinois, we were located in Champaign, which is about a 2-hour drive from Chicago. And Chicago, very similar to Baltimore and to the D.C. area, had really strong football with the Catholic League and the public league they have. And one of the things we wanted to do back then was take our brand up there to kind of give it some legs and kind of a thank you to Baltimore and thank you to Chicago when we took practices up to different high schools up in those areas for spring ball. And I brought that idea here to Maryland when I was here under Randy Edsel, and I can remember taking a practice up to, Baltimore City. We practiced on the city field there that St. Francis used. We took one to Frederick. We took one down to Southern Maryland. And, I really think it's our responsibility as the flagship university for the state to do a good job of promoting football throughout the state. And so we've played games up at Baltimore before a couple of years. When I was here, we played West Virginia at Raven Stadium. I know they played Navy there at one point. And so I thought it was important for us to kind of keep our foothold as the flagship university to make sure we did some things up in Baltimore. It's been a very fruitful area for our football program. And to me, it was a way to say thank you. We initially looked at taking it up to the Under Armour headquarters where they just opened up a new stadium. But because of their construction there, we couldn't do it there. And so, I talked to our chief of staff, Brian Griffin, and said, look, let's call around. And then all of a sudden, Morgan being an Under Armour school, we called up to Morgan, and Damon was really receptive of the idea of letting us use his facility. I did not know it was Baltimore Day initially when we hatched it because we're actually taking another one of our scrimmages down to my alma mater, Ballou High School in the southeast section, the next week after this weekend. And so, it was an idea that I thought was a way to promote Maryland football throughout the state and doing it there in Baltimore, which we haven't been up there in a while.
Oh, I think it's perfect, and I think it's really cool that it works out with Morgan, and obviously it'll mean something for them and get some eyeballs for them as a program as well, and it's tremendous, and it's a free event. Fans can just come hang out at Hughes Stadium, watch you guys. Do I have the schedule right? Morgan's going to practice at 11, and you guys at 2 o'clock on Saturday, correct?
Yeah, I think they're going for about 2.5, and then we'll go for about 2.5, which, we typically would practice early, but because we're them being gracious hosts, that, we're thankful that we get to use the facility they have there. And Damon has done a really good job there at Morgan, and I've known Damon over 20 years. I recruited his first cousin, Denard Wilson, to Maryland,
and
he was heavily involved in that process. Even back then as a young assistant where he worked under Henry Frazier, who was also on my staff here. So long-standing relationships. We both in the same fraternity, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. And so it's a great event for Morgan, and it'll be a great event for us at the University of Maryland.
An opportunity to interact with players afterwards as well. Just a really cool day, a good day to bring the kids.
Well, I got to say this. We can't interact as coaches with players. Now, our players can interact with their people, but because we're taking it off campus, and I wanted to make sure the players that make it up there understand, like, if we walk past them because we can't acknowledge them per se, it's only because of NCAA rules. But, for us to be able to have the ability to take our brand up there, it's a win-win for us and for Damon and Morgan.
Bro, how do you keep track of all of those rules? I appreciate that, you probably had to be told that by someone, or how in God's name do you keep track of every one of those individual rules that you got to do?
It's hard to do, but you know what? We got a great staff, and Cody Gambler and Jeff Baker with our compliance office, and anytime we do stuff like this, I always start with them first to say, hey, how can I do it?
Right.
And so, we've done it before, and I knew it was possible. They always kind of give us the guidelines to do it. You can practice there, but afterwards, you guys can't talk to players or recruits that are there. Our players can, obviously they have relationships with some of these high school guys that they played with, and so it's legal for our players to, but we can't use it as an off-campus recruiting opportunity because we're practicing there. But you know what? It gives us a chance to get the Maryland brand up in Baltimore, and what a better day than Baltimore Day to have it there.
No doubt.
I definitely want to thank Damon and Morgan for having us.
And you can interact with fans. Like, you can bring,
definitely.
you guys will be doing a lot of that. And
pictures and all those, we want to do everything we can. We want to try to sell some season tickets while we're there. Hopefully we get some of the Baltimore base that I go to a bunch of Raven games, and when I'm there and I just see the passion in that M&T Stadium for the Ravens, I just keep asking myself, how do I transfer that over to us, and taking it up to Baltimore or practice there, hopefully gives them a chance, fans and supporters up there, to see that we got a pretty good brand of football, and I know Morgan State as well. So it's a great opportunity.
Coach Mike Locksley is with us again. This is coming up this Saturday at Hugh Stadium at Morgan State. Coach, I want to talk to you about the team, but just because you brought that up, years ago, and I've always felt like it existed more on the basketball side than maybe on the football side. But there was, like, a little bit of a frostiness. Like, there were folks in Baltimore that would say things like, yeah, Maryland, that's a D.C. school. You, of course, you're a D.C. guy. You know this. Do you deal with any of that at all, or you feel like that has dissipated as you have made your inroads in Baltimore as the head coach at Maryland?
You know what? You hear it. It's kind of unwritten. Being a D.C. guy, I know the frostiness between D.C. and Baltimore in terms of just the culture piece. It's nothing personal. But I went to school at Towson, and I've kind of got the best of both worlds. So I've got a chance to embrace and see the beauties of what Baltimore offers. I mean, obviously Under Armour is headquartered there in Baltimore, and it means a lot to one of our biggest supporters, Kevin Plank, who built his company through Baltimore. And, man, if you look at what the city is all about, it reflects kind of who we are. So I know we get that whole we're a D.C. school because we're 20 minutes outside of D.C., but we're only 35, 40 minutes from Baltimore. So what I'm trying to do is embrace the best of both worlds, that we have two major metropolitan areas that are very powerful cities, and they can help uplift the brand here at Maryland as the flagship university. So know all about the frostiness, and you and I both know it kind of started with Coach Wade in his short tenure here at Maryland. He kind of was the barrier breaker as a minority coach here on campus, and he did the best job he could do, and that's what I'm trying to do.
I appreciate that, and look, man, I'm the guy. I'm the guy that has no connection with D.C. whatsoever. But this is the University of Maryland. Like, that's my flag.
Right.
This is not hard for me. That's the flag
red and white with stars on it. Exactly.
Correct. Exactly right, man. All right, Coach. You got a few quarterbacks this spring. I guess I know you're not going to tell me, although if you want to, that would be cool. Like who's got a leg up, but can you just kind of break down the guys that are in that room, and are you confident that definitively there will be one quarterback by the time you get to September, or could it be more complicated than that?
You know what? I won't even get into the prognostications, Glenn, as to whether it'll be one or two. I mean, I've been here through some tough quarterback years where, I went from a quarterback to a scout team linebacker, Sean Petty, starting the last half of the season. So, you know what? I'm taking this quarterback competition. I'm in the room now, one day at a time. I can sit here and go through the strengths and weaknesses of each one. As you know, we got 6 that are going to be kind of fighting for the job. It's early. Taking this scrimmage up to Baltimore, if you look at kind of some of the positives of it, it gives me a chance to evaluate quarterbacks with people looking and fans watching and seeing how they react in this type of environment. So all part of the grand scheme as we try to move toward making a decision, but not even close to doing it, not even close to saying who has legs up and all those things. We're going to do as much as we can to make sure, I'll tell you this, whoever the quarterback will be the guy that takes best care of the football, has the ability to sustain drives and have every drive end in the kick. That's who our starting quarterback. The guy that does that the best will be the starter.
Can I ask you specifically then about it's so a lot of guys, like we could see the love that guys had for Billy as he was playing in the bowl game. There are probably Maryland fans that say, "Hey, love Billy, great guy, but we're used to seeing him in, run situations. That's been his specialty. We don't know about Billy as a passer." What maybe should we know about Billy as a passer that perhaps we haven't fully seen yet?
Well, I mean, I would think you would hope to know that, as an evaluator of talent, and I've had a chance to be around some pretty good quarterbacks in my career, that we wouldn't bring a quarterback in that doesn't have the ability to do both well.
Yeah.
Billy's done what we've asked him to do. We've had a starter for the last 4 years in Talia Tungavailoa, and when we use Billy in ways that took things off of Leah's plate, where we've got a quarterback we don't want to expose in the run game, so let's use Billy. So that does not mean Billy is just a runner. That means that's what we ask Billy to do. But I can tell you, there's very few quarterbacks that I've recruited that I bring in that don't have the ability to throw the football. Like that's not what we do. If you look at the history of this system and the type of receivers and skill we've had. So I would venture to say that Billy has the ability to throw the football, contrary to what maybe people think based on what we've asked him to do the last couple of years.
I think that's incredibly fair. I moved to, you've had a couple of changes in staff, but I think that one of the things that we've always kind of grown accustomed to is that Maryland, has sort of become like wide receiver U in recent years, right? Like that's just kind of the way that it's worked out. Who do you feel like is stepping up the most of this group of wide receivers that you have at this point?
You know what? The veteran guys that we have coming back, and we've always played a lot of guys over the years and at the receiver position because we asked them to do so much. But, the veteran guys like Caden Prather, Caden made a bunch of plays for us a year ago as the first-time player in our program. The development of Ty Felton and how he's come along. I am the one guy that I am hoping to see the breakout year for that I think has just a tremendous upside is Punch Knott, Shalik Knott, and Punch is one of those guys that has length, size, speed, and maybe he's been behind some talented players, as you said, with some of the receivers we've had. But I'm looking for him to have the kind of Ty Felton breakout year that Ty had a year ago, and and then you look at Octavian Smith Jr., who's made plays for us since he's been here in our program. So quite a bit of players. Brandon Wisłowski returned a big kick versus Virginia. So that is one area that I'm really excited about because I know we have great depth and great skill there. And I think the two veteran guys and Ty and Caden will be kind of the leaders of that room now that they've progressed in this program.
All right. I have to ask you about this group of draft prospects and specifically the guy that, selfishly, the Ravens have some offensive line needs at the moment. Like, it feels like that DJ Glaze absolutely could be helpful in that capacity.
Well, I think DJ or Gottlieb Ayeje, Gotti Ayeje, who transferred in from Frostburg, who's climbing up the charts with his athleticism. Both DJ and Gotti, DJ's played all four positions, both sides, guards on both sides, tackles on both sides. And people don't know this, but I actually approached him a year ago and talked to him about after our season a year ago, saying, look, if you have a COVID year, let's do some research, but thought about moving him to center because I think he can play center in the league. And just that versatility and then his athleticism and his durability over his career here at Maryland, where he's been one of those guys that's been pretty much a 4-year starter for us over the years. Definitely a guy that I think could help a bunch of NFL teams, not just the Ravens. And then, as I said before, Gottlieb Ayeje and his athleticism, I think his upside, he's a guy that would have probably benefited from one more year with us, but he didn't have any more eligibility after a 4-year starting career at Frostburg. He just logged a lot of hours. And when you look at his skill, he's very similar to Jalen Duncan and that twitchiness that big guys have because he was a guy that kind of played 1 year of high school football, grew up kind of a soccer player. So I think he has a lot of upside to him and a person that you'll hear his name called.
All right, I've got Chris Braswell joining the show a little bit later on this morning. I know you were heavy on Chris a few years back. You got a great story about.
I recruited Chris to Alabama.
I know you did.
Before I left.
You got a story about him that you can tell me that I can maybe bring up with him later?
Man, all I know is this, man. Chris he sat at Bama for about 2 or 3 years before we heard his name the way we heard it this year, and I was glad to see that he finally got the opportunity to show what he's capable of. But over the years, he's one of those guys that you know maybe would have benefited from a place like Maryland where you get on the field to play early. But I'm glad that it's worked out for Chris, and really talented player, great family. As I said, recruited him to Bama there right before I left. He committed there, and it's great that he had that type of year he had this year, which hopefully you can get him drafted as high as possible.
Any chance we're going to see like Coach Saban helping out as like a consultant or anything moving forward with Maryland football?
And I talk with Coach often. He's also on my board for the National Coalition for Minority Football Coaches, and he and I have a really special relationship. He's been very helpful in pushing the mission of the coalition, and like I said, we talk a lot. I use them to bounce ideas and things off of, and he's been a great mentor for me.
I just feel like he's got to get bored soon, right? Like this can't.
Well, no, I think ESPN will keep him busy. He makes a lot of money as a public speaker where he goes and speaks to people. So, and he plays a lot of golf now.
Oh, well, okay, then that's fair. At this point, he's probably been waiting for this opportunity for a long time to just do nothing.
Maybe one day I can save some money and get him to come speak at one of our clinics here at Maryland. Maybe I'll be able to afford him in a year or two.
Might be time. Coach, I really appreciate it as always, and I genuinely think this is awesome what you're doing this Saturday. Thoughts for you and for everybody about Vontae's passing, and I know how much he meant to everybody, and I've known Vernon for a long time, and it's just awful news. So I wanted to send a second to say I'm sorry to hear that, and I know how important he is. But
well, I appreciate it. Spent the other day over at Miss Adeline, Grandma Adeline's house when we heard the news. I went over there and had a chance to spend some time with Miss Adeline, Vontae and Vernon's grandmom, who is the matriarch of the family, man. And I'm tired of burying kids. I'm tired of seeing kids go too early, man. The circle of life isn't built for parents to bury children, man. And these don't ever, you don't ever get over them. You just learn to get through them. And obviously prayers are to Vontae's family. The Illinois family recruited him to play, and spent a lot of time talking to a lot of his former teammates, and we're all saddened by his untimely death.
I know you unfortunately know the story all too well, and it is incredibly sad. And our thoughts with you and everybody that knew Vontae and loved him. Coach, always appreciate you, man. Thanks for taking the time for us this morning, and we'll talk to you real soon. All right.
All right, thanks, Glenn. Appreciate your support.
It's Coach Mike Locksley with us here on GCR, Maryland football coach, and they're getting ready for this event on Saturday, and we talk about things that are no-brainers. Look, I'd love for there to be more games in Baltimore. Touching Baltimore in whatever way they can, that's in the no-brainer department. You're talking to these kids, coming out of places like St. Francis. Kevin Humes just committed to Maryland this past. That's the type of kid. Hey, we're here. We're here. We're a part of this. Seems like a small thing, but it goes a long way. We're present. We're involved. I talked about this with Maryland baseball and the fact that I like the fact they come play games here. Acknowledge that exists. Should it exist? Should it not exist? That's a conversation for somebody else, but it exists. There is an opinion. Some of you hold it. Maryland's just a D.C. school. Acknowledge that and go out of your way to come touch Baltimore. And that's what Maryland football is doing this Saturday when they come play at practice at Morgan State. So I think that's a good thing. Speaking of good things, Griffin, what's going on at the Green Turtle today? That's a very good, or not today, tomorrow.
Tomorrow at the Green Turtle, yes. And every Thursday at the Green Turtle. They have sports betting now. And so every Thursday, the Green Turtle Sportsbooks in Towson and Canton are offering you a free $10 bet on whatever you would like. Of course, baseball season is now upon us. And you can experience the ultimate destination for game day excitement, great food, and live in-person betting at the Green Turtle. So check out the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbooks in Towson and Canton. Pick up your free bet and make some money while enjoying some food and some sports tomorrow at the Turtle.
Yep. Seems like a no-brainer. Don't know why you wouldn't stop over there and do
NIT
that.
championship, you know.
Ah, yes, you got to get in on that. It was Indiana State and
Seton Hall.
Seton Hall, that's
Yeah.
right.
Both
It's
should have been in the tournament, probably.
The tired wired thing. I don't know about that, but the tired wired thing is the NCAA didn't know what they were doing with Indiana State, and then you see that you forgot they were playing the semifinals in Hinkle Fieldhouse, and see thousands of Indiana State fans there, and then you're like, oh, the NCAA knew exactly what they were doing, leaving Indiana State. Look at what they created. A storyline, people giving an F. Speaking of basketball, last night, Derek Queen, co-MVP of the McDonald's All-American game, which doesn't mean anything at all, but it's a
pretty big deal.
No, it's that thing where like it can't hurt. It can't name any other MVP of a McDonald's All-American game ever. Yeah, you think you're gonna luck into getting one?
Yeah, Carmelo, I'm sure, right?
Maybe. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can. Wait. I gotta.
You may not look it up.
No, I don't want you to look it up.
Okay,
They were co-MVPs because it was.
Well, just because Derek Queen was so good, and
it was
they didn't want to make the guy feel bad. You know?
Well, it was Ron Harper's son.
Oh yes,
that was who's the top recruit that's going to Rutgers. Because what a world we're living in.
What a battle! Wow, I mean,
yeah, right.
This Maryland Rutgers rivalry is going to live on for a while.
It's going to be wild. All right. I need you. Okay. MVP. All right. You said Carmelo.
And Devin Booker, I'm sure won one.
Whoa. Chill.
Anthony Davis.
I do not. No, Carmelo was not an MVP of the McDonald's All-American.
Kevin Durant was though.
Kevin Durant was an MVP
because obviously
was. Yes, on the second try you managed to get one. I feel like there was a more obvious one that perhaps you should have come up with.
I don't know, LeBron James.
Yes, LeBron James was an MVP.
But that was low hanging fruit. I wasn't gonna.
That was
too
MVP.
easy. I didn't need it.
Last year it was DJ Wagner and Isaiah Collier. Maybe not encouraging you that there's a direct path from.
Kevin Durant won it.
That's a great point. I hear you.
So did LeBron James.
The year before it was Dariq Whitehead. It's been a little while since there's been a relevant MVP of the McDonald's All-American game. The years before that, Cole Anthony was the MVP.
Okay,
Nasir Little was the MVP. If you go back to 2017, it was Michael Porter Jr., who, of course, is the eternal example of, I guess you're good, but why aren't you better? I can't watch Michael Porter Jr. without having those feelings every time. Like, yeah, you're helpful. Like, I know you're a good player.
Nuggets could have done it without him, that's for sure.
But, like, look at you. Why are you not better?
How tall is he? He's like
6'9", right?
Jeez.
Like, it's nuts.
I mean, he makes he
makes
his shots.
Exactly what you're saying is exactly what I'm saying. You're having the same epiphany in the exact same moment. He's good, but shouldn't he be better? It's exactly the Michael Porter Jr. story. Josh Jackson and Frank Jackson. Who is Frank? I don't even know who Frank Jackson is.
Oh, Frank Jackson.
Exactly. Maybe the Jackson 5. Check Diallo, Jaleel Okafor.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Justin Jackson. Aaron Gordon was an MVP. Shabazz Muhammad. MKG was an MVP. It's Harrison Barnes. There we go.
Yeah.
There are some relevant names, but it's not a. You got to go back a ways from a time where like being MVP of the McDonald's All-American game translated into.
They're gonna have to call it the like Kevin Durant MVP.
And then it's gonna change everything. Yeah. That's the way it's gonna go. Why would they choose Kevin Durant instead of LeBron?
Well, because LeBron's got enough.
Okay. You know what? That's a compelling argument. I will give you that.
I was looking at because the Lakers are playing in Washington tonight. And
okay.
I decided to look at prices just for like a minute. I mean, I've never seen LeBron play in my life.
Really?
This is probably, I'm not
sure. Yeah, it's running down.
Yeah.
It is interesting, this Bronny James story. Like, everybody was so convinced that like he would just go to the league, whether he was actually ready or not, so that he could do the LeBron-Bronny thing. Maybe part of it is that like LeBron told him, bro, I can ride this out for another year. Like, he's playing well enough that it certainly won't be embarrassing for LeBron to drag this out another year past next year in order to try to make the thing happen with his kid. But part of the unspoken part of the conversation is Bronny really ever going to be good enough to be in the NBA? Like, somebody will put him on the team. Your boy Ben Hall was joking. Ben Hall's a big Wizards fan.
What else is he gonna do?
Anything at all with his time. He was like, well, the Wizards are the perfect team to do this. Like, in 2 years, say, sure, Bronny's not good enough, but we'll put him on our team if it means you'll come play for us. I mean, what do they have to lose? What do they have?
Yeah,
like,
that would be
they
great.
exist
That
as
would
a
be-
money laundering
that would,
scheme. Like, why not?
I'd
be
take
the
it.
team?
I'd be pretty psyched.
Yeah, and
Get
there's
my LeBron Wizards jersey.
there are no Wizards fans to be angry about it. Like, it'd be by far and away the most relevant thing they've done since Michael Jordan, and that was nothing. So
It's a big deal.
why not? Why not just establish yourself as the place where everyone comes to have a cup of coffee at the end of their career?
Yeah. Well, it looked like so for $150 was about the cheapest I could find, and so to drive to DC, to sit in the very last row. They played last night, so it'd be the second game of back to back. I think I don't know. LeBron played.
The Lakers
entire,
did.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So it just
Could you imagine paying $150 for a get-in ticket to a Wizards game and then LeBron doesn't play?
played 30 minutes last night. So
Ooh. Could you imagine? Could you imagine if that were the case?
Yeah.
That would be rough. That's like when I was a freshman in college. Cal Ripken's final game of his career was supposed to be at Yankee Stadium at the end of the year. And so my buddy and I paid, combined probably, because you got to remember this is 2001 pricing that we're talking
Yeah.
about. So we probably, but we're also, poor freshmen in college. We paid, I think, $100 each, so $200 total for tickets in left field for that final Sunday of the season for what was supposed to be Cal Ripken's final game. And then 9/11 happened. And they canceled the baseball games for that week, and they moved them to the end of the season. Now, again, priorities, like,
yeah.
this is like complaining about the traffic right now after the bridge fell. Like, you can't, you gotta. But, like, man, if the moment didn't, like, I remember the two of us sitting in a room together as we're, like, watching the coverage of 9/11, and we both all of a sudden had the thought.
Oh, man.
But you can't say it out loud.
Right.
You can't be like, oh, God, our baseball ticket. Like, you can't say that. Like, you'd be a monster. But, of course, you're only human.
Yeah.
The thought crosses your mind. And then we get to the point where I'm like, dude, what? I don't want to go. Like, it's just some baseball game on it. We're going to have to skip watching football for a day in order to go to this baseball game that no longer mattered. And he was just like, well, yeah, but we already paid for the tickets. I'm like, right, but now we got to pay to drive up there and to park for a meaningless baseball game. And somehow I let my buddy Josh talk me into going anyway instead of just accepting our losses. And
Oh, yeah, you should have went.
and not. It's the only time I actually ever went to the old Yankee Stadium. That place, what a dump that was. My God. I mean, it was awful. Like, Fenway's a dump, and we all, like, nobody's allowed to say it because history or whatever. Like, it's terrible. But
Fenway was cool.
no,
I went when I was like 13.
it's a dump.
So I guess maybe that was why.
Yeah, it probably didn't matter to you that the seats are, like, yay big.
Yeah.
You could fit in them.
That's a good point.
God, a dump. There's no room to move in the concourse. Like, it's just it's awful. Awful. The Yankee Stadium, if you sat in the outfield in the old Yankee Stadium, like in what they called the bleachers where we were, you couldn't even access the rest of the stadium. Like, there was a special entrance just for those seats, and the only concessions they had available were hot dogs on a slice of white bread. Like, it was atrocious.
You see the pierogi dog that
I did see that. Like, somebody suggested we try to recreate it for a challenge. I'm like, there's an awful lot going on with that. I don't know if that's gonna happen.
Yeah, that is.
Like, we'd have to come up with a real. We're doing the pepperoni and cicada pizza.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
I don't know what we're doing. Maybe we'll do a draft thing for that. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
All right, we come back
It looks
in.
good too. I mean, that's
Yeah, it's too.
for at least a bite.
I don't know. I think it's too much. Yeah, there's a lot there. When we come back in, we're going to do County Sports Zone Radio. We got to move some things around this morning because Buck Showalter wants to join the program. And, who am I to say no? Buck Showalter's going to check in with us. All that coming up. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
Hey, it's Jeremy Kahn. This postseason, bet in person at the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbooks with locations in Canton and in Towson, and enjoy the best in-class sports wagering experience at their state-of-the-art facilities, bringing an unmatched sports betting thrill.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Discover one of Baltimore's hidden gems at Guilford Hall Brewery. Enjoy dinner in our spacious brew pub, sip a signature cocktail in our outdoor, dog-friendly beer garden, or take a tour of our brewery. Discover your new favorite local craft beer. From crisp lagers to hoppy ales, there's something for everyone to enjoy. Pair your brew with delicious appetizers and entrees. There are options for the whole family, but you have to try our fan-favorite giant pretzel. Guilford Hall Brewery, where every sip is a celebration. Visit us online at guilfordhall.com.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
Oh, honey, we better stop for gas soon. Let's pull into that Royal Farms.
Ugh, gas is so expensive.
Nope, it'll be cheaper than you think.
Why's that?
I signed up for Rofo Pay on the Royal Farms app. Now we save 15 cents per gallon at all Royal Farms.
Wow, that'll save us a ton of money. I love you more every day.
Well then, don't get a speeding ticket this trip, okay?
Sign up for Rofo Rewards and upgrade to Rofo Pay and save 15 cents a gallon on gas for a limited time. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Craving that classic New York deli experience? Look no further than the new Atman's Deli in Baltimore's Harbor Point. Corned beef piled high, hand-rolled bagels, and something different. A bar! Atman's has food and drink specials every day. Now open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Dine in, grab takeout, or hang out at the bar for the next O's game. Atman's Deli, an authentic taste of Baltimore tradition since 1915. Find us at Harbor Point or visit atmansdeli.com.
What company has the expertise to make your home healthier by purifying your air and killing all viruses, allergens, and bacteria? A.J. Michaels, Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis, ajmichaels.com.
Hungry? With 7 locations throughout Maryland, Glory Days Grill is always right around the corner. They have wings, burgers, salads, sandwiches, and drinks to satisfy everyone, as well as tons of televisions and sound delivered right to your phone. Glory Days is the best place to watch football or whatever your favorite sport is. While you're there, be sure to check out Goose Flight's Lager, named in honor of legendary Raven Tony Goose Siragusa. $2 of every can is donated to the Goose Flights Foundation. Glory Days Grill. Great food, good sports.
One of the things that's definitely wrong with this country is that this dude still has a job somehow, some way. Glenn Clark.
Back in here on GCR as we continue along on a Would You Rather Wednesday edition of the I guess I need to put the Would You Rather Wednesday scenarios up on Twitter. I should probably do that. I put them on Facebook and then utterly forgot to put them on Twitter. My bad, guys. Go find them on Facebook, facebook.com/Glenn Clark Radio, and I'll get them posted on Twitter here momentarily. All right, it's time for County Sports Zone Radio. Usually do it on Tuesdays, but scheduling, we had to move things around. So joining us this morning from County Sports Zone, countysports.zone, proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer. He is our friend, Mr. Wes Brown. Wes, good morning, sir. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Everything is good over here. I know it was kind of a weird week because of spring break, so maybe it's a good opportunity to kind of take and reset some rankings this week with the spring break.
Yeah, obviously a lot of spring breaks, over the last 2 weeks, and a lot of rain postponing stuff, last week as well. But we did come out with our, initial rankings for this season. Obviously, we're going to have a month and a half or so leading up into the playoffs for MPSSA lacrosse. So on the boys' side, Broadneck, Towson, Urbana, Severna Park, and Bethesda Chevy Chase are the top 5 there. Broadneck was obviously able to win the title last year, and they do play kind of a tough early schedule. So really, really testing themselves. And then over on the girls' side, Broadneck, again at number 1, Marriott's Ridge, Hereford, Reservoir, and Century. The Bruins obviously won both 4A titles last year, so they're definitely going to hope to do it again, but there is going to be a lot of push from some new faces. So it's going to be exciting to see who can, maintain everything and keep pushing through the lacrosse season.
What is in the water at Broadneck, man? Like, what is going on over there? Jeez, just dominating. in the early season. Its conference action actually got underway yesterday in MIAA lacrosse as well. A bunch of big games. I saw Boys Latin get their first win of the year. So, we always seem to talk about this, but it's kind of crazy how far along we already are when it comes to lacrosse. Were some games that were played. Who was the athlete of the week for this week?
Yeah, so athlete of the week, going back to last week early, Will Sherwood out of St. Michael's, junior pitcher there. Again, Snow Hill last week went 6 innings, 1 hit, no runs, no earned, just 1 walk and 7 strikeouts to help lead his team to a 2-0 record to start the year, and they bounced back into play this week.
All right, that's pretty impressive, by the way. Maybe the Orioles could have used him last night instead of Cole Irvin. That might not have been a bad option. So everything is fully back into swing this week.
Yep. So we've obviously been postponing and moving some games here with the wet weather continuing. So you can keep an eye on those. But yeah, for the most part, we've got almost all these counties back into action here. So it should be an exciting month of April.
All right. So remind everybody about what they can find at County Sports Zone and everything social-wise, everything like that.
Yeah, so County Sports Zone is the home for all the schedules, scores, and other content about high school sports in the state of Maryland. We've got our baseball pick'em is out. We've got a few slates this week, and we actually have girls lacrosse coming soon. So it'll be exciting to finally get a girls sport up there and kind of keep expanding. We'll have boys lacrosse after that. So at CSC Scores on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm at W_Brown21.
What about, do you have like a full breakdown to offer of Derek Queen's performance in the McDonald's All-American game?
Yeah, obviously being a co-MVP is obviously a huge thing there. I was looking it up last night. I think Maryland's only had one before, and it was Adrian Branch in 81. So I think it's kind of a good set of company there for
right.
Derek.
That is pretty good company. I would by all means, that would be. Somebody would say that they needed to be even better than Adrian Branch at this point, but that would be very good company. All right, Wes Brown, appreciate you. Thanks for checking in for a couple minutes. We'll talk again next week, all right?
All right, sounds good.
It's Wes Brown with us for County Sports Zone Radio here on GCR. I feel like, oh, God, there was something that I wanted to do to touch on that I hadn't touched on at the top, and I was like, dude, remember, you're going to have a minute here to get into it, and I have already blanked because I am that age. That's just the way that it goes these days. All right, man. No, dude, I am. Shut up, John. I am.
I don't think they're playing baseball today.
I normally. Oh, thank you, Griffin. Dynamite. I normally write down notes on the paper that I have written next to me because I'm like, I have to touch on that today, and if I don't write it down, I'm going to utterly forget that I was planning to talk about it. And I swear to God, when I think right before Mike Locksley came on, I was like, oh, remember, I got to get to that. Nothing. There is nothing.
Start throwing out topics.
Written,
Maybe it'll.
Nothing at all on that. You see there. 0.
Clear-minded.
Nada. Nothing. So maybe we dance now? Is that what we do here in order to cover the time? Griffin trying to save the day. Like, I don't think they're going to play baseball.
Thought maybe that was what it was. Something.
So Luke Jackson, our editor here at Pressbox, saw that yesterday for Tubular on the website I had posted the headlines were, of course, the Orioles game and Maryland baseball playing at UMBC. And during the show, he had gotten an email that the game was being postponed to the next day. And I was like, what? They're not playing the next day either. Like, what are we doing here? What is this? I'm very confused. Hey, guy, what are you trying to prove? It's not going to be baseball played today. Look, Griffin's looking out his window, and he can tell you that's just simply not.
Yeah, it's not.
It's just simply not happening. That's the way that it goes. Thanks to Wes Brown, County Sports Zone, brought to you by your local Toyota dealer. All right, Buck Showalter next.
Correct.
Excellent. Do we think we could maybe see if Chris Braswell wants to join us tomorrow instead?
There is a potential that we could do that. Yes.
Okay.
I think we can.
Okay. So I love Chris Braswell.
Yes.
Baltimore native. Got a busy show today. Maybe not quite as busy a show tomorrow at the moment. So,
correct.
If possible, maybe we talk to Chris tomorrow.
Okay.
All right. He was supposed to join us at 11. Buck said he needed to do 11, and, I think you all understand. So why don't we do that? Why don't we talk to Chris Braswell tomorrow, and we'll have Buck Showalter join us, and then Daniel Jeremiah after that. So still a lot to do. Busy 11 a.m. hour here on Glenn Clark Radio.
Craving that classic New York deli experience? Look no further than the new Atman's Deli in Baltimore's Harbor Point. Corned beef piled high, hand-rolled bagels, and something different. A bar! Atman's has food and drink specials every day. Now open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Dine in, grab takeout, or hang out at the bar for the next O's game. Atman's Deli, an authentic taste of Baltimore tradition since 1915. Find us at Harbor Point or visit atmansdeli.com.
What company makes your home more energy efficient, purifies your air, kills all viruses, and qualifies you for $6,000 in rebates? A.J. Michaels Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis at ajmichaels.com.
Whether you're celebrating a special milestone, entertaining clients, or simply enjoying a night out, count on Ruth's Chris to deliver you the finest steaks, the best service, and a level of hospitality that has made Ruth's Chris one of the most revered names in steaks since 1965. Make your reservation now at ruthschris.com.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Discover one of Baltimore's hidden gems at Guilford Hall Brewery. Enjoy dinner in our spacious brew pub, sip a signature cocktail in our outdoor dog-friendly beer garden, or take a tour of our brewery. Discover your new favorite local craft beer. From crisp lagers to hoppy ales, there's something for everyone to enjoy. Pair your brew with delicious appetizers and entrees. There are options for the whole family, but you have to try our fan-favorite giant pretzel. Guilford Hall Brewery, where every sip is a celebration. Visit us online at guilfordhall.com.
The latest edition of Pressbox is available now, and on the cover we look at the promise of spring for the Baltimore Orioles as Todd Karpovich and others shine the light on the team's hopes to take the next step towards championship contention and what reinforcements could still be coming. Plus, Pressbox personalities offer suggestions to David Rubenstein about stewarding the franchise. Also inside, Bo Smolka on how the Ravens defense could evolve with new coordinator Zach Orr. And we meet lacrosse players from the men's and women's programs across the state. Pressbox is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores. And you can always find the entire edition as well as the best daily coverage of the O's, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
Contrary to what some people believe, I actually like this guy when he sleeps. Glenn Clark, talking sports.
Welcome back here to GCR.
Sorry, I was chatting with Buck for a second. There's nothing. Everybody knows how I feel about Buck Showalter. He's one of my favorite people on the face of the planet, and I very rarely take the opportunity to pre-talk to a guest when they call in. But it's Buck Showalter we're talking about. I needed a minute with them. Yes, joining us here on GCR on a Wednesday edition of the program, it is our friend and now once again MLB Network analyst, Mr. Buck Showalter, with us on the program. Buck, it's Glenn. It's great to catch up with you. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning.
Hey, nobody's that busy. Isn't it funny how people try to act like they're so busy? No, you're not. No, don't take yourself that seriously. How's it going? How's the weather? Are you going to play today?
No, I don't think they're playing. I don't think there's a chance in hell they're playing today, Buck. I don't think that's happening. It's bad now, and it's supposed to get worse.
I talked to my wife this morning. She's over in Edgewater right now. My son still lives. He lives up there in Severna Park.
So I've always wondered, like, would you be asking? Are you like us when you're managing? Like, are you bugging everybody every moment? Like, hey, is this game happening? Do you have opinions about it, or are you like, hey, that's beyond my control. I just need to set the lineup and worry about what I can do?
You know, the thing probably more the latter. You know, nowadays the weather prediction is pretty good. They're all looking for that infamous window to play in because doubleheaders are really way on a team. Last thing you'd rather play in bad weather than play a doubleheader down the road because it just kills your bullpen, kills your pitching staff. A lot of movement through the organization. I mean, you suck it up and play. And I think the last thing you want to do is have the clubhouse thinking, are we playing, not playing? You just want to have that mindset that we're locked in. And it's not an off day. You're there at noon, and by the time they call the game, sometime it's 8:30, you might as well play. And believe me, people that are really thinking through it, they want to play. They don't want these games rained out because you will pay that piper down the road.
I feel like the other part of this, too, and we were talking about this morning, the Orioles, Corbin Burns is slated to go today, right? And, the absolute worst-case scenario is you put out Corbin Burns to start a game, he goes 2 innings, and you've kind of ruined a Corbin Burns start today. How much more significant is?
No, Glenn, that's the big decision.
Yeah.
Is you don't want to burn starters, so you look for that window of where you know the guys are going to be out there a while. If you get 2 hours, you're going to play. I mean, heck, we started a game at Yankee Stadium, I think, one night at 11:15. Don't get me started about that. But but you just don't want to burn a starter, and because also if you do that, you're going to have to get into your bullpen for 6 or 7 innings, and that you pay that price too.
Yeah, that's no good. That's not. We're not having any of that whatsoever. Buck, I want to pose this to you because I want to make it abundantly clear. I'm not crazy. Not really. I'm not really crazy. I know that you do not overreact to someone's offensive start after 5, 6, 7 games. That's not the way that it works. But what is the date? When during the season do you start to look at someone's production and say, hey, this might actually be a problem and not just a slump? How deep into the year before you have those conversations?
Well, that's why we love to have players that have a track record. If they're healthy and they're in a quality state of mind mentally, sooner or later you're gonna revert to your track record. But also there are some times where you just don't get it going. There's no more exposure of strengths and weaknesses in a Major League Baseball season. You're going to seek your level sooner or later, but it's painful going through some periods. There's times as a baseball team that you feel like you may not ever win another game. Sometimes you feel like you may not ever lose one. So baseball's about stretching out the good times and shortening the bad times. The same way with a hitter. I tell them all the time, when you're going good, don't talk about your mechanic. Write down what you're feeling in the on-deck circle during that day in the dugout. What's your mental and emotional state of mind, because you're playing a sport every day. But I got to tell you, if with a young player without a track record, I'm not going to put an exact day on it, but, you see the potential of good and bad in a short period of time.
I mean, look, Gunnar struggled the start of last year, right? He struggled for the better part of 2 months, and the Orioles continued because they knew. They were like, this kid can play, and they rolled it out at that point. It's such a unique problem, and I say problem, it's not a problem. The Orioles have a lot of good baseball players. What a wonderful problem that is. But it's unique here because it's not just Jackson Holliday. There are so many talented players that, there is an argument that you want to try to get all these guys here. And when do you say, hey, this guy, he's a little bit off for a couple of weeks, and we happen to have this other player that we really want to see compete against major leaguers?
Isn't competition a great thing?
Man.
And especially when it's competing from within. The thing that everybody's looking for is young, controllable, not high salary, quality major league players. And, that's why. And the biggest jump in sports is from the minor leagues to the big leagues. So things that are happening in AA and AAA don't always equate initially. So you got to be careful about saying, okay, he's not going to be able to do this, or he's definitely going to be this. The short samples, you got to be careful. The big fooler in baseball is the guys in spring training, the guys in September. You got to be careful about basing. But then what else you got to go on? You want them to do well, and you pull for them. But, they're going to seek their level. The good ones, Billy Martin a long time ago told me, he said, Buck, try as you may, you can't screw up the good ones. Sooner or later, they're going to figure it out. And sometimes the best coaching you do is the coaching you don't do. I'm proud of so many of the players on that roster that were there when Mike and those guys got there. I mean, What a great Rule 5 pick Santander was. And so was, a lot of those guys, Austin Hayes, Mountcastle, all those guys were there when they got there. And Mullins, for instance.
No, it's incredible. It's absolutely. But now they're in this weird spot where, are these guys that they're committed to as being part of this moving forward as the next group of guys arrive, and it's a tricky place to be. Again, great. I don't even like calling it a problem, Buck, because it ain't a problem.
It's not.
Right.
It's one of the great things. Yeah, one of the great things organization can do is, identify the prospects and the suspects, and then you kind of propaganda the suspects so you can get something back for them. Gene Michael with New York was great at that. And it's one thing to have high draft picks, but it's also who do you take with those draft picks? I mean, let's face it, Bobby Witt Jr. or Adley, that's not a real hard decision. Either one of them you're going to be right about.
Right.
But if you really want to see how good a scouting department is, look at 2 through 5 in the draft in the rounds. That's where there's players there, but you got to really know what you're looking at to make the right picks.
So Buck Showalter is with us here on GCR. Buck, were you surprised by their decision to keep Jackson Holliday down to start the season, or did you think it made sense given his relative lack of experience at the top levels?
Well, there's an old expression my mother used to tell me, just because something's delayed doesn't mean it's denied. And there's a lot of things that go into those decisions and roster construction, but we think there's some finality about the first week in April or the month of April. And, everybody's gone through it. Sooner or later, he's going to get his opportunity. I wasn't surprised, especially when you know all the things that go on behind the scenes in putting a roster together.
How much is it the decision that Major League Baseball made to change the rule to try to get teams to have their best players on the roster on opening day? It incentivizes you that if you have them there, that you get a top 35 draft pick, which is real. How much of that should be a factor in decisions? Like, do you find yourself saying, hey, maybe if a guy we didn't think was exactly ready, but, like, it's close enough, we feel like we should put him on the roster now because that's so much of an incentive if he finishes top 2 in Rookie of the Year that we got to try to take advantage of it?
Glenn, I'm going to tell you real shortly, I don't know.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm not going to weigh in on things that I don't know about. I'm not going to tell the pilot how to land the plane or the heart surgeon how to stitch a valve. But, behind the scenes, what's going on with Baltimore and what their thoughts and theories, and I'm sure there are good reasons. Everybody's a little different, and you try to respect some things that you may not know about that are going on. I think your job as a manager, I think if you looked it up, sometime it's where it is underneath the dictionary.
Yeah.
And the old thing about be careful about telling truths that hurt innocent people, I try to keep that in mind.
We've talked about that before. I always appreciate that from you, Buck. Buck Showalter with us here on GCR. Buck, we lost a legendary figure in baseball this week, and someone who's very important to us in Baltimore, in Larry Lucchino, because he was so responsible for the stadium that we all love and the existence of Camden Yards. I don't think you were ever in the same place that Larry was, but do you have any stories and something that you could offer about how important Larry was throughout baseball?
I felt like I was in a lot of places with Larry because we seemed to always bump into him. He had great vision, great attention to detail. I mean, what a great legacy he left. I'll tell you what, I used to get to the ballpark at Fenway Park, and I would go out in the dugout and have a cup of coffee and collect my thoughts for the day. And I remember I walked out there, and it was real loud in the stadium. And I looked around, and Larry was in the stands sitting there with the loudspeakers blaring. And finally I just said, Larry, what are you doing? He goes, I heard the fans complain about the sound system, and I just wanted to come up here and experience it. I mean, to me, that was a great, he cared so much about the venues and the presentation to the fans, and he loved baseball. And there was, he had a great tenure in Baltimore. If you look at his legacy with Camden Yards and the things that he's impacted, just a very impactful life. And the one thing everybody talked about, his passion for the places he worked and the game itself, and we're going to miss him.
Yeah, an incredible figure and someone who loved the game so much and wanted to see the game grow. And I guess, Buck, I'd be remiss because you and I haven't spoken since Peter Angelos' passing, and I know from private conversations with you that you had great reverence for Peter Angelos.
Peter, when someone gets you and you get them, I mean, it was, I got some great advice from Mike Flanagan. He said, Buck, do yourself a favor. I didn't do it enough. Go over and sit down with Peter every homestand. And we just about did. We'd sit down and he'd, get his gripes out there, sometimes loudly, and we'd have lunch together, and I'd go back, and that's how we kept a coaching staff intact. There were certain things that you kind of wore. But, he's passionate about the Orioles. He loved the city. Everything was about the fans. What the fans don't deserve that, and this and that, whatever. They deserve better, or this and that. and the joy he took in us getting better. When he came down to the locker room during the playoffs against the Yankees, the look on his face, it was worth everything. You couldn't put a price tag on it. And nobody wants to hear about the great things that he did behind the scenes that he didn't want anybody to know about. I know he flew me to my father-in-law's funeral. He sent a plane down for us to go to Monica Barlow's, our PR director's funeral up in the Appalachians, and but nobody wants to hear. It's not stylish, but he cared, and I had a good relationship with him. It was very passionate. I mean, we had some, we had our moments, but it was all for the same end game that we were trying to do, and the Orioles meant a lot to him.
It's really, I appreciate you saying those things, because you're right. Like, it's not. Unfortunately, that's the way that this works, is that we measure things by, did you win a World Series or not, right? Like, that's the measurement of it. But those things do matter, and I've always sensed how much they mattered to you from a relationship front and just your ability to do your job every day.
Well, you realize there's certain gauntlets you have to, heck, the job description never took me by surprise in New York. I mean, with the Yankees, I knew Mr. Steinbrenner was going to be involved. I mean, fans don't want to hear you complain about it. Did it catch you by surprise? They should care. They own the team. I mean, if you own something, you own a car, you want to have some input on how much it's going to cost to repair it or what have you. So, it's just real life. We all think that it's not always that easy. Things that are hard have a better sense of enjoyment if you can get it done.
Buck, I know we talked after the Orioles acquired Corbin Burns, but after seeing him last week, it's been a long time in Baltimore. And I don't want to take anything away from Chris Tillman, who is a hell of a pitcher. I don't take anything away from, there was a magical season in there from Eric Bedard, and Kyle Bradish was really good a year ago. But this is a different beast. This is a different animal. And it was sort of immediately followed up by Grayson Rodriguez also looking brilliant a day later. What the presence of that person, beyond just how well they can pitch, and Corbin Burns we're expecting is going to pitch very well, but the presence of this type of figure within a clubhouse, within a rotation, how much does that do for everyone else involved and for the entirety of a team?
I think even from a manager standpoint, knowing you can approach a game before and after he pitches a little differently, knowing that chances are you're going to get some depth out of his starts, number one. That's just the pure baseball part of it. But I think there's a certain rock there that been there, done that. His finger's not going to shake when it's on the trigger. He knows what it takes. And I think I don't know him that well, but knowing the weight your words carry and not use them callously, that's the mark of a really good leader, I think, is that like Mattingly, he knew that people listen, so he didn't just pop his gums all the time just to see how smart he was. It's almost, it's the E.F. Hutton thing that, when he says something, people are going to listen. But at some point you have to back up your actions, back up your words with actions. Otherwise, it rings shallow. I know that I had that conversation with Adam Jones one time. Your actions have to back up what you're saying.
Well, I mean, my God, did his actions back things up on opening day? Holy smokes, Buck. That was, in that type of theater to deliver, the expectations are high, and then to turn around and deliver that, like, phew, boy. Like, you start to think things are special. Craig Kimbrell, I don't want to overreact because Craig Kimbrell it was bad luck the other day. He blew a save, but it was a bloop single, a couple of stolen bases. He struck out a couple guys. He largely pitched well. Craig Kimbrell probably can't be Felix Bautista from a season ago, though, because Felix Bautista exactly right. And I still feel like we might be missing that a little bit in town. That was historic. What Felix Bautista did a year ago, almost impossible. Do you have any concerns about the Orioles bullpen, given that the rest of the roster looks like it can be good enough to win the World Series? Do you have any concerns about the Orioles bullpen on the whole?
Well, I'm not going to, I'm not some expert on it, I can tell you that, but I do trust the track record if Kimbrell's healthy, and he's learned how to pitch a little bit more than just be a thrower, and I think sooner or later, those things are Is it going to be on the level of perfection? Of course not. It's hard to do. I mean, look at Hader yesterday. Look at different people. That's hard to do. That's why we missed Edwin Diaz so much all last year in New York. There's nothing worse for clubs. Well, I shouldn't say nothing, but it's tough on a club when they're constantly saying how much is enough. How much is enough? You know, you love to make leads matter after the seventh inning. It gives a great confidence in a team.
Yeah.
And so, I think as soon as he gets that first one under his belt, but he's a lot, in terms of Burns, been there, done that, and there's not going to be a panic in their actions.
So the whole role for MLB Network, games too, or just studio?
No, my wife said, you got to get out of the house here. I can't have, we're trying to stay married after 41 years. So once a month, kind of I'm coming up here and getting out of the house and staying connected a little bit. They've treated me well. It's just, we'll see what develops, but, they have a passion for baseball, and it's fun to be connected to it.
Look, you're incredibly good at it, too. Like, as much as, we thought of you as a manager, you're really good on television, and so we'll look forward to that. But, like, is it fun for you to do, like, if you got the opportunity to work games, is that still something that's fun to you? Does that give you any of the rush that managing does?
Not really. I got to tell you, Glenn, commercial travel after flying charter all those years, I don't know how people do it. I really don't. If you want to get down on society, just travel commercially. My gosh. Our fellow man, I look around and go, what is going on in our society? I'll leave it at that. But commercial travel will make you say, I think I'll stay home.
Yeah, I've got it's like almost in a feeling of existential dread. And Buck, now I've got a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old. So like we flew down to Miami in January, and I just I was like catatonic the entire time.
Well, I had it put rightly to me. Someone finally with an airline said, you understand, we really don't care. If you don't want the seat, we have 20 people waiting to get it. So when you have a product that people are going to sell regardless, just hang with them.
They don't care, right? Why do they have to treat you particularly well? Like they're oh man,
have to.
It's a story we could talk about for forever. Buck, always appreciate you. Thanks for hopping on with us for a few minutes this morning. Let's talk again soon. All right.
All right. Good luck. Good luck to you and the Orioles. Bye bye.
Thanks, Buck. Buck Showalter with us here on GCR. Could listen to Buck talk. I almost feel like I'm getting in the way. Like when I'm I just want him to keep going, and then he'll stop, and I'll be like, oh, I have to. I kind of just wanted to keep listening to you. I'm not even kidding about that.
Just throw another guy's name out there.
It's really the way it is with Buck. I don't want to interview Buck. I just want to listen to Buck talk. That's really the way that it goes whenever we have conversations with Buck. And there are days where it works out swimmingly. It wouldn't bother me at all if somebody said, well, somebody else has got to come in and do the interview. No problem. No problem. I get to sit. I can still sit here and I'll still be compensated for the day, and I still listen to Buck. You got it. You got it. I'm all in for that. He is the absolute best. Appreciate Buck Showalter taking the time for us. All right, so a little bit of an issue. I wrote out Would You Rather Wednesday. I shared it on Facebook, and it was literally as I was sharing it on Twitter. One of my scenarios was blown up. Because one of my scenarios involved the Ravens acquiring Stephon Diggs.
Did it really?
Yes, it did. And
maybe
when I posted it on Facebook at 9:57 or whatever time it was, no problem. As I posted it on Twitter, Brian Powell messaged me to say the Texans just traded for Stephon Diggs. Son of a bitch. Package of picks that includes a second-round pick in 2025. It's more than I had in this hypothetical scenario the Ravens giving up for Stephon Diggs. Apparently, it's complicated. The Bills get the 2025 second-round pick that actually is not – it's Minnesota's pick. What was the Minnesota-Houston trade that I'm forgetting about? What was that?
Houston,
how does Houston have Minnesota's?
I don't know.
Have I blanked on what? It had to be significant if it was a second-round pick. It can't be for nothing. What am I utterly forgetting about? Or did Minnesota trade that?
This trade is it that trade that they just did like a month? No.
But what was that trade?
That was where Minnesota got one of Houston's first round.
Oh, in order to move up to get because
Yeah.
they want to make sure they get their quarterback. Yeah, I guess it must have been. I don't know what other trade they would have made there. They would have had.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So the Vikings get Houston's number 23 along with a 7th rounder from this year. The Texans get the Vikings 2nd from this year, their 6th, and next year's 2nd.
Okay, so this is next year's 2nd from the Vikings.
Yes.
In that pick swap deal that was just about moving up because the Vikings have to take a quarterback. It's a hell of a way of going about doing business, by the way. So that essential throwaway in that deal is what the Texans end up turning around and using to get Stephon Diggs when they already had Nico Collins and Tank Dell. So, and now Tank Dell, what's the injury deal with him? Was that going to linger into next year? Or?
I thought it was like just an ankle, or was it?
I don't remember. That's why I'm asking because I don't remember. But those two were both ranked among like
it was a broken fibula.
I don't know enough about the timeline for a broken fibula, but I feel like that.
That
wouldn't.
that doesn't. There's no bad.
Yeah, I feel like that doesn't drag into next year. So imagine them coming back next year with C.J. Stroud, Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, and Tank Dell. That's decent.
Yeah, it's not bad.
That's decent. And who else did they acquire this offseason already that I've forgotten about? I was doing that, by the way, yesterday. Remember we talked about doing that with baseball players? Yeah. I have already forgotten about every offseason move. Like Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, end of list.
I almost forget Derrick Henry sometimes.
I don't forget about Derrick Henry. Although, it's funny. We had Ronnie Stanley on the radio show last night, and like it wasn't until almost the end of the interview when Rita brought up Derrick Henry. I was like, oh, right. Derrick Henry. We should ask him about Derrick Henry.
Okay, here's from Schefter. They have now added Stephon Diggs, Danielle Hunter.
Danielle Hunter, right. Yeah.
Joe Mixon.
They've got everything from the Vikings.
Danico Autry.
Joe Mixon was who I was trying to think of that they had added.
Jeff Okudah, C.J. Henderson, Tommy Townsend.
The AFC is such an effing murderer's row, man. Like,
we got Lamar, though.
I agree, but like, why can't you get petition for like 1 year to get out of the AFC? Like, maybe next year you go to the NFC. Just for 1 year, and then we'll come. Like, the teams in the NFC South are just sitting there like, as long as we don't lose everyone, we've got a chance. And we're sitting here like, dude, this team is loaded, and yet there are no promises of anything. Crazy times, man. The Texans are that is bonkers. And there's like the Jaguars really are the only other threat in the AFC South. God, the Texans are just. Remember how much we made fun of the Texans for a few years because they hired a preacher to run their team? It's a straight.
Well, they deserved
it.
It's
a thing they did. They absolutely deserved it.
And they
hired a preacher.
They quickly got out of it.
Couldn't have gotten out of the Deshaun Watson trade. Looks more and more like it will go down as one of the savviest thing that's ever happened in the history of football. Like a franchise-altering moment where they traded away a guy that, in fairness, was electric, but poisonous, and still managed to recoup a lot and have hit on basically everything they've done since then.
Feels like it.
Franchise-altering moment for the Texans with Deshaun Watson, man. That is, that is bonkers. That is bonkers. All right, very good. Stephon Diggs. So, yes, Would You Rather Wednesday has been altered because of it. So I've had to change one of the scenarios that was originally going to be about Stephon Diggs, and instead I don't know if people are as willing to do it because it's not Stephon Diggs that's involved on the other side.
Get Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, I thought about just saying, like, let's go back in time, and the Ravens could have done this for Stephon Diggs, and I'm fearful that that's what I should have done. I just should have left it alone for Would You Rather Wednesday. But I was panicked in the moment when Brian Powell messaged me that, and I just rewrote it about Matt Judon, and I don't think that like anybody's all that worked up about the return of Matt Judon. Although the Ravens have a massive need at that position.
Be pretty fun.
We'll talk about it when we get to Would You Rather Wednesday.
Fleeced in all caps is trending right now on Twitter.
We knew there was something wrong with the Bills. Like, we knew, but I'll never in my life understand how you don't figure it out. That's Stephon Diggs. Hello. Steal a line from our buddy Trippy. Hello? Yo, what are you doing? And there were a lot of talk at the end of the year about, like, the Bills might need to do a teardown and an essential kind of rebuild on the fly, which, like, you can only do so much when you have a quarterback. But Stephon Diggs. It's Stephon. So what is the Bills wide receiver core? Is Gabe Davis still there? Did they trade Gabe Davis this offseason? Do I remember that?
I believe he signed. Like he was a free agent.
He was
right?
a free agent. Was that what it was?
He is. Yeah, he's gone.
So what is the Bills?
Poyer's gone.
Yeah, but what is their receiver core at the moment is Curtis Samuel, Khalil
Shakir.
Shakir, and what is Justin Shorter?
Khalil Shakir.
I know that. I know Khalil Shakir.
He's pretty good.
He's good. He ain't Stephon Diggs.
I mean,
but
they're
he's
definitely
good.
taking their. Where they picked 28. I mean, I guess they're
presumably.
That's
but
gonna be whoever's left over.
Troy Franklin, like, is that what you're talking about at that point? Like, what is the
Ladd,
receiver?
I guess. Yeah, something.
Yeah, Ladd McConkey, but like, I don't think he's your. You're not drafting Ladd McConkey to be your number one receiver, right?
They don't have a choice.
What's his face from Texas could be the.
Oh yeah,
Donnie Mitchell. Yeah. All right, we come back in. We'll talk more about the draft. Daniel Jeremiah is going to join us on the other side. Today's show brought to you by Sports and Social. That's where Griffin and I will be on Saturday night, hanging out with you, watching the national semifinals inside Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Come hang out with us. Griffin's going to try to help us win some money. You're like planning this during the week. You got ideas.
Yeah.
All right.
We got plenty of UFC bets for everybody.
That's not what I'm looking for, Griffin. I need basketball.
Why are we there
bets.
on Saturday?
Because we're watching hoops.
Oh,
that's what we're doing. So yeah, let's get on
all
that.
All right,
Let's
scrap everything.
Let's get on that. So we'll be there, yes, on Saturday night. Great food and drink specials. We'll have great giveaways throughout the games, during commercial breaks. We'll be getting you ready. It's going to be a fun night. Going to be a long day because we're there for both games, and there's a break in between. Unlike, that's what you hate about when you get to the Final Four. You're like, oh, right, they've got to take a break. They can't just get us to the next game like they did in all the other rounds. But we'll be having a lot of fun, so come hang out with us at Sports and Social. Daniel Jeremiah next. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Hungry? With 7 locations throughout Maryland, Glory Days Grill is always right around the corner. They have wings, burgers, salads, sandwiches, and drinks to satisfy everyone, as well as tons of televisions and sound delivered right to your phone. Glory Days is the best place to watch football or whatever your favorite sport is. While you're there, be sure to check out Goose Flight's Lager, named in honor of legendary Raven Tony Goose Siragusa. $2 of every can is donated to the Goose Flights Foundation. Glory Days Grill. Great food, good sports.
What company makes your home more energy efficient, purifies your air, kills all viruses, and qualifies you for $6,000 in rebates? A.J. Michaels Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis at ajmichaels.com.
Oh, honey, we better stop for gas soon. Let's pull into that Royal Farms.
Ugh, gas is so expensive.
Nope, it'll be cheaper than you think.
Why's that?
I signed up for Rofo Pay on the Royal Farms app. Now we save 15 cents per gallon at all Royal Farms.
Wow, that'll save us a ton of money. I love you more every day.
Well, then don't get a speeding ticket this trip, okay?
Sign up for Rofo Rewards and upgrade to Rofo Pay and save 15 cents a gallon on gas for a limited time. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Jeremy Kahn here. The ultimate sports betting experience in Maryland is at the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbook. Join me at either location in Canton or in Towson and place your bets in person and be a part of the action. It's the best in-class sports wagering experience, complete with the ultimate TV package, ensuring you can catch every game all day, every day. Their state-of-the-art facilities bring Las Vegas energy right here to Maryland just in time for postseason football. So visit the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbook in Canton and Towson and elevate your game day experience and hang out with me to bet, watch, and win at the Turtle.
What company has the expertise to make your home healthier by purifying your air and killing all viruses, allergens, and bacteria? A.J. Michaels, Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis, ajmichaels.com.
Coming back in here with Glenn and the other guy, Garrett, whatever his name is. You know who they are.
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue along on a Would You Rather Wednesday edition of the program. If you missed Stan the Fan Charles, Ross Grimsley, and Luke Jackson, they got together on Monday. By the way, Stan has a column up today about Larry Lucchino at PressBoxOnline.com that I'd encourage you to read. We talked yesterday about how Stan has championed Larry Lucchino for the Orioles Hall of Fame and would be well-deserved. But if you missed Stan, Ross, and Luke on Monday, you can find that right now at Facebook.com/PressBoxSports. Click on the Videos tab or go to YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline, PressBoxOnline.com/video. Stan, Ross Grimsley, Luke Jackson, every Monday talking baseball with you. And then Stan and Eric Garfield doing the same every Thursday for PressBox and at Facebook.com/PressBoxSports. Always a pleasure for us to welcome in our next guest. Of course, once upon a time, a part of the Ravens front office, and for some time now, a lead NFL draft analyst at NFL Network. We welcome back into the program Daniel Jeremiah, who is with us on GCR. Daniel, it's Glenn. It's always great to catch up, man. Thank you for taking the time for us.
Glenn, I feel like we've been having these conversations for a zillion years.
I want to
now.
say, man, I want to say it might be 12 years at this point that we've been doing this.
Yeah.
So, and I love this.
I think
man.
that's accurate. And I used to always enter into the doors with a little Orioles jab, and I don't even know what to do with
Yeah,
myself
right.
anymore.
Life is good. Life is good in Baltimore these days. We like that.
Oh, my gosh,
man.
are they good?
Hey, I'll run this theory by you because I've heard it from a lot of people that are like, we think we know something, but, these are not. I want to make it seem like I'm reporting something either. That given what the Ravens' needs appear to be, edge rush, offensive line, that the players that are available at 30 aren't all that different than the players that are available at 40 or 45 in those areas. And given how many needs the Ravens appear to have at the moment, it seems like there's a lot of momentum about the idea of the Ravens trading out of the 30th pick. What do you make of that versus, no, actually it would make sense for them to take these specific players who would be there at 30 but wouldn't be there in the second
round? Where they're positioned, I think, is you put it eloquently. I mean, like, there's no difference. I think I posted that the other day, like, whether it's 25, 35, 55, I don't know that there's a whole lot different in this draft. And the Ravens, especially with Eric, have been really willing to manipulate and move around. And I think this is that one is I think that you are staring at your phone and begging it to ring when you're on the clock where they are.
Is there anyone in particular that, like, hey, but if this guy's there, you're not messing around? Like, this is such a no-brainer that if it happens to fall that way, there's no need to pick up the phone whatsoever. And like Chop Robinson, for example, is the guy that would stand out. Like, if somehow that guy falls, you take Chop Robinson at 30, right?
Yeah, I would say the three guys I would probably keep an eye on. Chop would be one of them, and then I would probably say Mims and Guyton.
Okay. Okay.
Those guys would be interesting, just because there's a drop off at the offensive tackle. While it's a deep group, 7-8 deep of really good players, they're all going to go. So once that group is gone, I think trying to find a starting tackle gets extremely difficult. Whereas if you want to add somebody else, you want to find an interior offensive lineman. You want to add a receiver, corner, some of these other positions. You can feel comfortable, especially with their track record, that you're going to be able to land on one in the middle rounds. But tackle to me is different. If one of those guys is there, you take them. And to me, Chop is he's right in there with that top group of edge rushers. So after him, I think there's a little bit of a dip.
What is it? Talk me through those two linemen, right? Why do Mims? Why did they stand out in comparison to that next group of guys, the Christian Haynes, whoever that would be in the world?
Yeah, I mean, they're both a quarter of an inch under 6'8". Mims is 340 pounds. Guyton's 322 pounds. They have freakish length. They can both move. They're both good pass protectors. Neither one of them have played a ton. That's the only reason there. If these guys had another year in college, these guys are both likely top 10 picks in next year's draft. So there's tons of value there. It's just there's not many human beings walking around at this size that move like these guys do, and that's something the Ravens have always been about. Going back to the Jonathan Ogden, Orlando Brown days, like they love massive human beings, and these guys are enormous.
So I noticed that Chop Robinson was on the board when you did your last mock draft, and yet you had the Ravens going a different direction. And it's interesting because I don't know that anyone would say, hey, it's their biggest need, but I think everything that we know about the Ravens in recent years is, go corner and then go corner again and then prioritize corner, and it seems like that's the way that Eric DeCosta has said we're building a defense, is we're building it outside in. Is that a sheer, hey, Cooper DeJean is too good, if he's there, you got to take him type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just something about maybe it's me falling into the historical trap of just being in that draft room and seeing the Iowa player and knowing without knowing the conversation that's taking place between Eric and Kirk, who are very close, and just saying with Kirk Ferentz saying, this guy's a special player. You can move him all over the board, which they love to do with their defense. He's intelligent. He's tough. And last I checked, the work that they've done at that school has panned out quite well over the years.
Yeah, including more recently Geno Stone, and I heard of some guy named Marshall Yonda that worked out okay.
Yeah, he was okay.
He worked out decent. Daniel Jeremiah, of course, is with us here on GCR. Daniel Jeremiah is an NFL Network analyst and host of the Move the Sticks podcast, along with Bucky Brooks, which is available wherever you listen to your podcasts. And NFL Network provides live coverage of the NFL Draft in Detroit from April 25th to April 27th. Daniel, I know he had an injury issue, right, Cooper? But that's everything's good, and that's not expected to be something that lingers, correct?
No, he's working out, I think, in about 5 or 6 days.
Okay.
I want to say.
Okay.
Coming up here, but he's going to work out. Yeah, no, I was told that was nothing to be overly concerned about.
He might be I've been running this by a few people during the draft process. Daniel is like, in the last couple of years, this was Kyle Hamilton, right? Where like we go through the draft and all of you guys are saying, "Oh my God, the Ravens did it again," right? Like, how did this work out? This guy fell to the Ravens. It's maybe not the biggest area of need, and maybe that Cooper is the player that we're talking about. But is there someone else that you would look at and say, if that's the conversation we're having come Thursday night, April 25th, it's because this guy somehow the rest of the league screwed up and let this guy fall to the Ravens at 30?
Yeah, I mean, usually it's because I can't imagine it, right? And I can't see it happening. Only thing I could think of, and I've seen some. You look around some mock drafts. I don't put a lot into it, but in some of these things, I'm like, man, am I missing something on Jared Verse? I don't get how the world he's there in the 20s. But like, I could see a guy like Jared Verse who feels 1,000% like a Raven. If he were to get there in the early 20s, that maybe this is an opportunity for them to go up and get a guy like that who's just plays like a bully and fits exactly their philosophy there in Baltimore.
We mentioned the drop-off after Chop Robinson, right? I'll give you an example. There's a Baltimore native, and I think he's going to join the show tomorrow. It's Chris Braswell from Alabama.
Yeah.
And I see the production. Like, I see the 8 sacks from a year ago, and I know he didn't play a whole ton before that, but, boy, it seemed like he knew what he was doing. Why isn't that next group? Like, why is there a drop-off between Chop Robinson and then the players like that? What is it that doesn't, for a Braswell, for whoever else will be on that list, that you don't quite see them as guys that are worthy of being in the first round?
Yeah, I'd have the next guys after that. So I've got Chop, and then the next one you're talking about Darius Robinson from Missouri, who's a bigger edge. he's not, he's just a bigger guy. He's not anywhere near as juicy or as twitched up as Chop is. Then it's Marshawn Nealon, who kind of fits the rugged style there in Baltimore. He doesn't have that same, pure juice that you get with Chop. And then Braswell for me. Braswell's my 51st player. So I put out a top 50. He's 51. And again, there's still a lot to like about him. We had him on the show yesterday on Total Access. I had a chance to visit with him. He's a great kid.
You're gonna
Agreed. Enjoy your conversation with him. Yeah, he's a really cool kid. But there's the 1 year there. I don't think he's even though he ran really, really well, I don't think he has quite the explosiveness that Chop does.
Okay.
But they're similar. I would say they are a similar brand of player, and I could get on board with that. If you are a team that loves Chop, I would think that you'd be a fan of Braswell.
But you would rather be taking him in the 40s than in at 30.
Yeah, I mean that's just how I just have other players carrying higher grades.
Yep.
But it's just like it's the same brand of clothing, but just it's a different shirt.
I like that. That is good, my friend. So everybody talks about how deep this offensive line class is. The Ravens have maybe multiple offensive line needs, right? Like they have some internal options, and I think they remain extremely excited about Jared Voorhees. I know how excited you were about Jared Voorhees a year ago, and I think that's going to be part of the conversation. And Ben Cleveland could be in that conversation, Daniel Faalele. But how deep into this draft could you be finding a guard or even a tackle starter, like someone that you'd be taking? Could you be doing that in the third round and saying, we think this is a guy that we would be confident plugging in on day one this season?
I think with the interior you can, which I think it's funny because people will say, we've talked about the depth of the tackle class, but the problem is those are premiums, right? So those are gone. Those are off the lot gone. So those top 8 tackles, forget about it. They're flying off the board. Whereas, your eighth interior guy, that is going to be in the third round. In the third round, in some cases even into the fourth round, where you're going to find guys like Brandon Coleman from TCU who's plug and play. We'll see Christian Haynes. I think he probably goes, late 2, early 3, somewhere in there. You've got La Mea from Utah is a good player. Cooper Beebe from Kansas State. Like there's Mason McCormick from South Dakota State. There's a good chunk of guys there that I think are ready to play.
Yeah.
In McCormick's case, I mean, he only started 57 games in college. So, maybe if we just got him a little more experience at the collegiate level, he'd be ready to go at the next level.
All right. I know I got to let you go here in a minute, but is the quarterback hysteria too much? Like we're just talking about how this is going to end up working out for the Texans, that the Vikings were so desperate to get any quarterback. They moved up, and the Texans end up with extra picks and Stephon Diggs in this, which is just like I'm starting to be really nervous about the Texans in the AFC, man. Like they are crazy loaded. Is the quarterback hysteria too much, or is this really this good of a class at the top?
Well, I think it's interesting because there's the other side of that coin, which is the reason the Texans are where they are is because of C.J. Stroud immediately turned the fortunes of their franchise, and everybody's chasing that.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's kind of that's where it is, and I will never complain about quarterback hysteria because having done this on the TV side for 12 years, I know these drafts are a heck of a lot easier when we're talking about 5 quarterbacks, 6 quarterbacks potentially going in the first round. As opposed to whether or not we're debating if Ryan Nassib is the top quarterback in the draft. So I'll take this.
Here's the problem, though, for us at 30. If the Ravens are trying to get value for the pick, we need the quarterbacks to be available at the end of the first round so that there's more trade value at that spot. Daniel Jeremiah, of course, at Move the Sticks. Always appreciate you, man. Thanks for doing this. Let's talk again real soon, all right?
You're the best, brother. Talk to you soon.
Buddy. Daniel Jeremiah. With us here, of course, NFL Network for coverage of the draft, April 25th through 27th. And check out the Move the Sticks podcast with Daniel Jeremiah as well. Boy, we have really flown along here on a Would You Rather Wednesday edition of the program, and we haven't even done Would You Rather Wednesday yet.
Oh.
We've taken all of our breaks. This is historic for us. This is never, unless it was predetermined that like we had to be out of here by a certain time because we had to go do something. This has never happened before. Just the way it part of it is I didn't really feel like talking much more about the Orioles game last night. I had no real interest in discussing it any further because there was nothing to discuss. Nothing happened. And as much as we want to pile on Cole Irvin, there's no alternative yet at the moment. There's no, hey, next time through, throw this guy out there instead. Like, Cole Irvin's going to make his next start, and at least until John Means is declared ready, Cole Irvin's going to be in the rotation. Then we'll have something to debate at that point. If Cole Irvin's, has another bad start, there probably won't be anything to debate. He'll just have to be the odd man out. The question will be at that point, that thing that I brought up earlier about Tyler Wells, if Cole Irvin solidifies and then John Means comes back, do you say Cole Irvin is still the worst of the starters, so he's the one that goes? Or do you say Tyler Wells is the guy that could maybe help you the most in the bullpen, so he's the one that goes? But we're not there. There's no debate. None of these guys in the minors are ready to start. It's not like they can bring. Did Julio Teheran sign somewhere? Not that anybody wants him back. So. But, it's not like they're going to sign Julio Teheran tomorrow to make the next start for Cole Irvin. There's just no debate to be had. It was one baseball game. It was the 5th game of the season.
Apparently the Mets are talking to him. They've renewed talks.
And I felt so. Did you see over the weekend when Tyler Nevin got claimed by the Athletics, and you're just like, oh.
He's going to play baseball.
The poor son of a bitch.
He sent Estuary Ruiz down.
That's right. That's exactly the move. They sent down Estuary Ruiz for. In fairness, I guess Estuary Ruiz. I've somehow convinced myself Estuary Ruiz was one of their good players.
He is.
But
he definitely is.
That's in context because they don't have any good players.
I mean,
his numbers are not very good.
He batted 260,
I want to say
250
something.
He was because I remember I took him with my last pick in my fantasy draft last year. Everybody was clowning me. They were like, "Oh wow, you took it," and then he ended up. Because he stole until he got injured in July, I think last year. He had more stolen bases than Acuna.
He ended up hitting 254. 254, 309, 345.
Now
to your point,
hurt.
he stole 67 bases.
Yeah. And
so, that part
he
of the
had 40
conversation,
by July or something.
That part of the conversation is relevant, and there's no justifying the timing on this because he started out the
elite
season.
defensive outfield as well.
He started the year 3 for 7 with a double and a triple. There's no justifying. There's a lot of conspiracy theory stuff going on with Oakland that
yeah, that's.
You were trying to explain
ridiculous.
this to me that he was wearing a bracelet made by the people that are behind the kind of boycott or the protest of the Athletics.
That's ridiculous.
And apparently the most likely scenario is that they're gonna, or maybe I saw that they're thinking now that the in between will be in Sacramento. That for 2 years they're going to play at the minor league stadium in Sacramento until the Vegas stadium is ready, or maybe it's 3 years that they're going to have to play there until the Vegas stadium is ready. Whew, what a dumpster fire that is. Just an utter dumpster fire. All right, let's play Would You Rather Wednesday. Would You Rather Wednesday is brought to you by Glory Days Grill. Somebody's winning a $25 gift card to Glory Days Grill just for participating. All you got to do in order to participate is respond. At Glenn Clark Radio on Twitter, Facebook.com/Glenn Clark Radio. Those are the ways to get in. Someone who does will be chosen at random to win a $25 gift card to Glory Days Grill, where they have those delicious cheese bites with the Sriracha Ranch sauce. I believe they're continuing for a little while. I know we're outside of Fish Fridays, but the hot chicken or the hot fish sandwich was so popular at Glory Days Grill, they're going to keep it on the menu for at least a little bit. Maybe they could be talked into keeping it for forever. There's certain things that we just like that. The Reuben egg rolls. Remember that Atman's brought in, and I was like, dude, forever. Not for a good time, for a long time. We'll see if perhaps Glory Days Grill can be talked into keeping the hot fish sandwich around for forever because it has been very, very popular. But you could win that $25 gift card to Glory Days Grill just by participating in Would You Rather Wednesday. Would you rather numero uno? Right now, the Baltimore Orioles make the commitment. Colton Cowser is a quote-unquote everyday player, and they figure out the at-bats for all of the veterans from there? Or, no, it's too early to do that. You can continue to figure this out moving forward.
I think it's too early. I think that Cedric Mullins, Anthony Santander, and Austin Hayes is a really, really good outfield, and they've been playing with each other for so long, and I don't know. I guess I also think it's a case where there might not be a wrong answer either. Where
I hear you on that. Where because it is what you just said,
and I know how good Mullins and Santander and Hayes are all in the outfield defensively.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's the part that I can't shake. Like, maybe there's a higher upside to Colton Cowser as an offensive player. I still don't know because it's not like these are bad offensive players that we're talking about. This isn't somebody who's all defense. I get it. The ultimate numbers for Cedric Mullins last year weren't that great, but we all recognize the fact that injury affected that. And at one point early on in the year, he was the team MVP. Austin Hayes has never typically been the last 2 years, Austin Hayes has been a world beater through July, and by the end of the year, he's been a good player.
Mm-hmm.
But good is still good.
And his glove and arm are always there.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
It's very difficult for me to say. It's why I was hoping the Buck would give me an answer about this, because I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated by at what point does someone's offensive, when during the season do you say this matters now? And I get what Buck's saying, that perhaps it's elongated for a veteran because you've got a track record with those guys and you know what you're falling back on and they'll get going. But what is the date? And I think the Orioles are having some of those same conversations too. They know it's not today. Today's not the day. But when is the day? When you have... It's also a year ago. Yeah, you keep sticking Gunnar Henderson out there because who's playing if Gunnar Henderson isn't playing? He's a long-term part of the solution. He's getting the job done defensively. And what is the option if it's not Gunnar Henderson? Well, somebody might point out it could have been Joey Ortiz. It could have been... And those aren't bad options. It's so complicated. This is not for talk radio, what's going on with the Orioles right now. Talk radio is one or the other. It's an easy choice, right? Like, that's what's good for talk radio. This is far more complicated than that. Like, far more complicated. I'm inclined to agree with you. Would it be the end of the world to me if they said Colton Cowser's playing every day and we'll move everybody else around?
Yeah.
I don't think it's at the expense of one person.
And that's what I don't love about it, is because
there's no one that you say this person needs to come out of the lineup, other than maybe Ramon Arias, but they haven't been like married to Ramon Arias so far. It's just been sort of like a convenience thing at this point. The Ramon Arias is the only guy that you say that guy probably should not be in an everyday lineup for a team that's trying to win a World Series. And it's not even a shot at Ramon Arias, who we all think is a qualified major league player. We just think that in this group, he's the one. But that doesn't clean up that nicely. That cleans up obviously much nicer for Jackson Holliday than it cleans up for Colton Cowser. Like, there's just not an easy switch to be made to try to make Colton Cowser. So I'm inclined to agree with you about that. Number 2, would you rather you're gifted an all-expenses-paid trip to the men's Final Four in Phoenix this weekend, or to the women's Final Four, but it's in Cleveland?
Oh man.
Yeah, this is tough.
I get to see Caitlin Clark.
Right. Like, from a basketball standpoint, you say to yourself, like, yeah, I'd probably rather be at the women's Final Four. But then from a geography standpoint,
let's see, are the Guardians home? Like, do I get to sneak in?
no idea.
Squeeze in a
no
Cleveland
idea
game, or do I have to squeeze in a
I have no idea.
Diamondbacks game?
I have no idea if the Diamondbacks are home. Of course, the men's Final Four would be out in wet. Like, I don't think people realize how far away Glendale is from Phoenix. Like,
it's like an hour, right?
It's not an hour, but I mean, if the right traffic on the right day, it could be an hour. But it's a good distance from Glendale to Phoenix, and so I don't know. Like, when I say all expenses paid, I didn't include this. It might not be in Phoenix proper. It might be that your all expenses are paid to stay in Glendale, Arizona, which doesn't mean you can't go visit Scottsdale and go visit the nice areas.
The Diamondbacks are away, so are the Guardians this weekend.
Doesn't help you at all.
So
doesn't help you even a little
we
bit.
Pretend they are? Or?
Diamondbacks are.
I know.
Feeling really stupid about leaving them out of the playoffs in my projections. Feeling really dumb about that.
4 games in. 5.
Go ahead. Make your pick.
I'll go see Caitlin Clark.
I feel like that the basketball argument is like you're watching a phenomenon.
Yeah.
As good as
UConn and Purdue are like that. That should be.
Yeah, but I feel like
can I make it back in? I can make it the month.
No. You don't get to go to both. Stop it. Stop trying to do this. I feel like the basketball argument is in 20 years we might not really remember anything about this men's Final Four. Maybe we'll remember who won, but
if Purdue and UConn get to the final and like
it'll be a thought of game,
yeah.
but like I don't know that it's going to be something that we're going to remember eternally, right? Like Zach Edey, most people don't think is going to go on to be a great NBA player. He'll be kind of correct. He'll be a college phenomenon in that way. Caitlin Clark looks like she might be an eternal talent. And the basketball argument is you had a chance to say I was there when, although I still, that's part of the problem too, is that we don't think this is a coronation moment for Caitlin Clark either because we still think South Carolina is the team to beat in this process. But if they were to win, you would be the one that would be capable of saying forever, I was there to see Caitlin Clark win the national championship in that kind of crowning moment. So from a basketball standpoint, I feel like it is an easy argument to say I would rather go to the women's Final Four. The problem is a lot of people are just lining up with, I just looked at the weather in Phoenix. I'm going to go spend the weekend in Phoenix.
It'll be indoors in Cleveland. And
it's true. You're right about that. For the basketball
where are we
part
sitting
of it.
For this?
Lower level. And again, lower level in arena better than lower level in a football stadium, right? Like, so that's an upgrade as well. I will end to, I've got a lot to say. Laps still on given the weather. Still, Laps. Oh, that's not. Never mind.
That's not her.
Different
that's
person.
A
Different person. Sorry. So we have someone here that does laps that I'm obsessed with. I just don't know. I want to know the story because there's just laps around the building constantly. And I looked out. I'm like, you're really doing laps in this weather? But it was a different person, so I take it all back. The weather factor is real. I haven't looked at the weather in Cleveland this weekend, but I'll just go ahead and guess. It's Cleveland. It's
be windy and
it's probably not great.
Yeah, dry and if it's not raining, dry and
it'll be one of the
fun.
It'll be like it's been around here where you're like, oh, this would be nice if it weren't.
I can do the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and
I don't
anything else, I guess.
Yeah, it's basically the list. I mean, you could probably take a day trip over to the Football Hall of Fame if you've never been.
Oh yeah, you're right.
That's a quick, on Saturday you could wander over and see that.
Canton from?
Canton's close.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah, it's normally when we used to host trips out to Cleveland, we would normally try to do the Football Hall of Fame as part of it.
Being in Ohio is not.
No, there's just not a lot. There's not a lot.
I think I'll put up with it for Caitlin Clark for the weekend for 2 days. Yeah, I can. Well, so it has to be.
You'd be there from Friday through Sunday. Yes, you'd be there the whole weekend.
Yeah, all right.
That's as miserable Cleveland is. You're like, oh God, I got to be in Cleveland for 3 days. And then finally, number 3, originally was going to be, would you rather the Ravens in a stunning move can acquire and clear the cap space for Stephon Diggs?
Really?
For just a 4th-round pick.
Wow.
But only if the only liquid you consume for the rest of April is the 7-Eleven hot dog water that was an April Fool's joke, but they're actually thinking now about making anyway.
Oh.
Or they have bigger needs. Now, so let's start with that one. What would have been your answer for that one?
So the Ravens get Stephon Diggs if I drink this thing for the rest of the month?
For the rest of the month.
I get only that? Or
that's the only liquid you're allowed to consume is the hot dog water. Jesus. No beer, no soda, no lemonade, no just hot dog water.
Right, well, the Bills couldn't win with Stephon Diggs. Why would the Ravens?
That's a great point. So then if I replace it and I make it Matt Judon for a 5th-round pick.
And I get no.
You're still out? Yeah. Really? See, this is actually for me. Water and ginger ale are the only liquids that I consume to begin with, right? Now, I think the hot dog water is probably gross. Like don't get me wrong.
On ice or it's chilled or
maybe in the refrigerator. It's in a can, so you'd pull it out of the refrigerator in a can. It'll be cold, and it would taste like a hot dog. Now,
I feel like
a lot of
blindfolded me. It might not. Well, yeah, probably
if you didn't know, you'd be like, it's weird, but like
this
fine,
water,
whatever.
Right?
Yeah, I wouldn't enjoy it, but for a month, It's just a month, and all
Why would
I
you
drink
enjoy
is,
it?
No, I said I wouldn't enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, you made it sound like.
But for a
there's
month, could I
possibility-
survive it? Is what I'm saying. Could I survive it to address an actual need for a football team? No. It's the answer. I'm out. I got to think about what I should have done. I could have done that better. I could have done that better. What if I guaranteed?
I mean, Stephon Diggs was a better.
Yeah, it's better because it's
better,
Stephon Diggs,
yeah.
right? Like, yeah, whatever.
Had
to do
Justin
it on
Jefferson.
Had to do it on the fly. It didn't work out.
They decided they're not going to re-sign Justin Jefferson. They trade him for a 2. But you got to drink your dog water.
Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
I think I'm doing that.
Yeah.
All right. We're gonna alter it one more time. Forget it. Whatever. I'm putting too much effort into this.
JJ McCarthy said, "I'm only gonna play for the Vikings
If they get rid of Justin Jefferson." Well, they don't have a 2 anymore. They gave it to the Texans, so I'm not sure.
Well, that's why they need
They need it to.
Yeah,
right. That's a great point. They need it to.
A back-end second rounder.
What are we doing? All right, that's Would You Rather Wednesday. Participate or don't. I don't care. But it's brought to you by Glory Days Grill, and you could win a $25 gift card to Glory Days Grill if you do participate. Today's show has also been brought to you by Goose Flights. Goose Flights is, of course, delicious. It's available all over town. It certainly does not taste like hot dog water. It's outstanding. Go get this at your neighborhood Glory Days Grill. It's available at all the locations here in the state of Maryland. You can also find it at a bunch of other locations, and a list of those locations is available at PressBoxOnline.com/GooseFlights. Goose Flights can be found all over town. All right, I think we can start to wind down for today's program. Let's get a tidbit. Tidbit is brought to you by Ruth's Chris. Ruth's Chris. Every time I say those words, I just start thinking about that sizzling plate, the sound, the smell, the joy that it brings to me. I love Ruth's Chris so much. Oh, am I supposed to tell people about it? I'm sorry. I just wanted to live in the moment. Whether you are celebrating a milestone, if you're entertaining clients, or just enjoying a nice night out, a well-deserved or a long-time-coming date night, you need to let Ruth's Chris provide you the finest steaks, the best service, and a level of hospitality that has made them one of the most revered names in steak since 1965. Make your reservation right now at ruthschris.com.
Let's start with our okay, so Caitlin Clark, since we talked about her, she had 40 points and 10 assists on Monday night in their game, the most watched game ever in, I guess, women's tournament history.
12.3 million people.
It was the second time in NCAA tournament history, so since assists were tracked starting in the the mid-'80s. Second time, men's or women's, a player has had 40 points and 10 assists in a game. Any idea?
In any tournament game?
Mm-hmm. Any idea who the other player to have 40, the first time this happened, 40 and 10?
No.
It's a trick question. Caitlin Clark has done it
Oh,
twice.
she's the
only one to ever
That's
have
pretty good.
40 and 10 assists in a tournament game. And then we'll do our
but she didn't manage a triple-double, so.
Yeah, it's a little disappointing. What she have? Only like 7 rebounds or something?
Lame.
Nolan Shanuel,
Yes,
of course,
the Angels.
continuing his on-base streak here. He is the.
You say, of course. I had no idea this was a thing.
Well, they talked about it over the weekend, and he's gotten on base the first 2 games of the Miami series. So he is now at 34 games, most consecutive games, to reach base safely to start a career since 1900. Any idea the 2 players? Kevin Brown did say their names, and they were some great names. So.
Oh, are they old-timey baseball names?
Yeah, one of them's a great one.
Old House Radbourne.
No. Number one, okay, so number one, not old-timey, but 1984, Alvin Davis has the record 47 straight games.
Vaguely remember. I don't remember that streak,
Yeah.
but I vaguely remember Alvin Davis.
He has the record 47 straight games. Shanuel is at 34 right now, number 2 on the list, so he's close to passing number 2, who is at 38 games to start their career in 1918. Truck Hannah.
Oh, Truck. Oh, Truck Hannah.
Truck Hannah at 38. Shanuel is at 34. And then
that is really remarkable. I will acknowledge that. I don't know how I completely zoned it. Like if they were talking about it, I guess because we were at the game on Thursday, and then I was doing the show during the game on Sunday. And like I just don't remember that coming up. But man, that is remarkable.
Sarah Langs keeps us updated each day as well.
Thank you, Sarah.
Number 4 on the list, 1938, Eno Slaughter. Is that a good enough?
Enos
info?
Slaughter is a well-known. That's a
20,
famous.
29
that's a very
was
famous
his
baseball
streak.
name.
Those are the top 4. And then also this year, now
I'm pretty sure Enos Slaughter is a Hall of Enos Slaughter is a Hall of Famer.
So this one, we're doing a college football Final Four, college football playoff Final Four one. There are 5 schools since the formation of the college football playoff that have made a Final Four and made the college football playoff, a men's Final Four.
5 schools.
Yes, since the college football playoff was incepted.
Oh man, the first one I was going to say was Oregon, but now I'm Oregon.
Oregon is on the list. Oregon has made a Final Four as well as the college football playoff.
Alabama, of course.
Alabama now this year. They're one of the 2 to do it in the same calendar year.
Right. It's obviously not. Michigan.
Yes.
Michigan. And
2 more.
Texas?
Not Texas.
Haven't made a Final Four in a while.
No. Yeah.
I should have really.
Did they make the playoff?
They didn't. I could have sworn they made one of the playoffs. The
They
playoff has
were,
been
like,
going on for a
close.
little while. I think it's been going on for about 10 years at this point. Have they not made a college football playoff? I could have sworn they. Man, maybe I'm crazy.
I don't think they.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah, they have.
If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. That's what it is. All right, fair enough.
So neither for Texas.
Texas made it this year. Stupid. They played Michigan.
No, that was
this year.
Oh, that was that this
Wasn't
year?
it this year?
I thought they
played.
they got squeezed out.
No, because Michigan played Alabama.
And then Washington.
So then Washington played Texas, right?
Why are we?
Yeah, Washington played Texas. Texas made it this year. They made it this year. I'm not crazy. They made it this year. Yeah, go ahead and double check that. And then tell you're a dummy. Who am I forgetting about?
Yeah, you're right. They did.
Yeah, thank you. I'm quite aware.
Wanted to block it out. Didn't want Texas to be in there. All right, well, anyway, they're fine. Fair guess.
Yeah, but I was still wrong. I understand. You just tried to make me double wrong. A-hole. All right, yesterday I didn't guess Michigan State, so I'll guess Michigan State.
Michigan State.
Because they were good in football for a little while. I know they've been dreadful the last couple of years, but for a little while they were very good.
One of the 2 to make it in the same calendar year as well.
Oh, okay. And then there's one more. All right, I'm just guessing. LSU.
No.
They haven't made a basketball Final Four since. I'm trying to remember. Was that Glenn Big Baby Davis? Was that the last time they made a Final Four? Ohio State. Did they make a basketball Final Four in here that I've forgotten about? Just trying to remember who's made the I can largely think of the teams that made the college football playoff. The Final Four there ends up being random teams like South Carolina that end up getting into a Final Four at some point. You're like, oh right, I forgot. Man, it's gonna drive me nuts. I'm missing one.
Final Four college football playoff, same, or both schools to make it. Yeah.
So it's not Duke. It's not.
No.
It's not Houston.
No.
I don't believe it's UCLA. It's clearly not Gonzaga or Loyola Chicago. It's not Kansas. It's not Villanova. It's not Virginia. Baylor? Is it Baylor?
Not Baylor.
They didn't make a college football
They did
playoff.
not make a playoff.
It's not Florida Atlantic.
No, it's not.
Ironically, it's not Miami, and it's because they haven't made a college football playoff. It's weird. It's very weird that Miami's on the other side of the ledger. It's not NC State. It's not Purdue.
Purdue? No, it's not. It is. Do you want the year? Or, I'm trying to think if that'll.
Is it Auburn?
It's not Auburn. Auburn has not made a playoff. Yeah.
Did Oklahoma make a Final Four in there? All right.
2016
Final
Four for
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
I don't remember Oklahoma's. Who was on that? What was that run? Was that Buddy Hield? I guess.
Was that Trey Young? That was
Trey Young, maybe.
No, he didn't. Because I remember I don't think they made the tournament with Trey Young.
That's tougher than I thought it was going to be. Who was on that Oklahoma team? What year was it?
2016.
2016 Oklahoma basketball. Man, let's see if I can't. Oklahoma basketball. That would have been Buddy Hield. All right, I did have that part right. Yeah, Buddy Hield was on that team.
Good team.
That's the only player that you would remember from that team. There's no one else that you would possibly be able to name from that team, but Buddy Hield was on that team. All right, Tidbit was also brought to you today by the Green Turtle. Griffin, what's going on at the Green Turtle?
Free $10 bets at the Green Turtle every Thursday. So that is tomorrow at the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbooks in Towson and Canton. And you can go ahead and use that on whatever you would like once you get down there. And you can experience the ultimate destination for game day excitement, great food, and live in-person betting. So go check out the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbooks in Towson and Canton. Pick up your free bet and make some money while enjoying some great food and some sports tomorrow at the Green Turtle.
Let's wind down, get Tubular for this afternoon and evening. Tubular is brought to you by the print issue of Press Box, which is still available for another couple of weeks and sort of celebrates the expectations of the 2024 Baltimore Orioles. Last couple of weeks for this print issue of Press Box, which is available for free at your neighborhood Royal Farms. Here's what's coming up this evening and this afternoon, weather permitting. Like right now, I guess they're still feigning as though they're going to try to play this game today. Masson, Orioles, it's scheduled for 1, Cole Ragans and Corbin Burns. I heard somebody else pronounce it a different way than Ragans recently. Ragans, I think is what I heard. Can we get to the bottom of that?
It was Ray. Well, I guess we'll find. Well, maybe we won't find out today.
I don't know. Okay, let's get to the bottom of that.
Whatever Kevin Brown says, I'll go with.
Pirates Nationals at 6:45 on Masson. So I guess if the game gets delayed, there's I don't know how that. I don't know. UMBC Maryland baseball scheduled now for 4 o'clock in College Park on Big Ten Network Plus. Again, scheduled for that. Who knows what's actually going to happen. Stevenson Lacrosse hosting Franklin and Marshall tonight at 7 on GoMustangSports.tv. MLB Network, Reds Phillies at 1, Cardinals Padres at 4, Giants Dodgers at 10, Monumental Lakers Wizards at 7. Griffin, if you've got an extra ticket, call our buddy Griffin. He'll go down there.
Go watch LeBron play 12 minutes tonight, and it will be
bucket list item. But he's not paying. It's not happening. ESPN Thunder Celtics 7:30, Cavs Suns at 10, TNT and True TV for Devils Rangers at 7, Oilers Stars at 9:30, USA Arsenal and Luton Town at 2:30. I was living in a Luton town. I watched Friday Night Lights not that long ago, and so it's still stuck in my brain. I think I've decided I'm committing to a rewatch of Entourage next. Something I've never gone back. As I've tried explaining to people of a certain age, when Entourage was on, it was still largely in the period of time where, like, if you missed it, you missed it on a Sunday. So you missed an episode. Like, some people had TiVo, some people had. I didn't. I guess at the tail end of Entourage, I had DVR at that point, but I didn't have HBO. Was the problem, so I couldn't. So I missed a lot of episodes of Entourage, so I think that's next for me, is doing a start-to-finish rewatch of Entourage, which
I'm happy for you.
I stand by is not a great show. It's fun, and you enjoy it, but it's not – I do not believe that it holds up as a great show.
Okay, so this is one that I don't need to, like –
Oh, have you never watched Entourage?
No.
It had a moment. Like, the concept of – it being about the relationships between the 4 guys,
like I remember when like that the movie came out, and I
never saw the movie.
Yeah, well, I never watched it either, but I was like, oh, this looks.
And Jeremy Piven's great, and like the cast is kind of like you go back and look at the cast, and you're like, wow, they really didn't do there was this for like Jeremy Piven did a lot. Jerry Ferrara was fine, who played Turtle,
Mark
and
Wahlberg was in it, right?
Mark Wahlberg was like a cameo appearance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like he was not in the part of the show. The cast was Jeremy Piven, Adrian Grenier, who was like he played the hot. I can't even think of what his name is. The hot shot actor.
Vincent Chase.
Vincent Chase. Thank you. Vincent Chase was the hot shot actor, and they were all glomming on to him like they were his entourage. God, who else was in Entourage? Oh, Kevin Connolly, of course. Kevin Connolly, who is his like assistant/manager, and then his brother Johnny Drama, and who played Johnny Drama?
Kevin Dillon.
Kevin Dillon, who I think is related to Matt Dillon, but I don't remember that definitively. It's funny looking back on it because I convinced myself those guys
haven't done anything.
Those guys were stars, right? Like they were and then I'm like, wow,
Wait,
they really.
Who was Jeremy Piven in old school?
Oh, Jeremy Piven was the dean.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Dean Pritchard. Like Jeremy Piven's a legitimate movie star. But the rest of them, there's kind of entourage and not a whole lot else there. I don't know how we got onto that, but that's what I'm watching. What do we start with? Lutton Devil Town, Friday Night Lights, the whole thing. TBS or AW. What am I doing? TBS or AW Dynamite tonight at 8. Non-sports?
New episode of Survivor, of course. On Fallon tonight will be The Rock and Roman Reigns.
WrestleMania.
And I guess they're doing a triple team with Emma Roberts, apparently. She's also on Fallon, so I assume she's hanging out with them as well.
I think they call them triple teams, but
what do they call it?
3-man tags is what they normally call it.
Okay. Emma Roberts is there's a new season of American Horror Story on FX tonight.
That's never. I love American Crime Story. I've never gotten in on American Horror Story.
And then of course The Bad Batch and Palm Royale new episodes on Apple TV Plus for Palm Royale, Disney Plus for Bad Batch.
What is Palm Royale again?
This is it's Kristen Wiig and Laura Dern, and it's like a big
but
country
is it
club.
Fun? Is it
thing.
Funny?
I mean, I'm sure Kristen Wiig's in it, and then I'm sure there will be moments. But I don't. It looked.
What, it's on Apple. It's on Apple.
Yes.
I will not be.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry about it.
I have to decide if I'm going to be.
New episode of X-Men '97. Of course.
Ted Lasso was when I would decide to subscribe.
That's
to
why LeBron's
Apple
not going to
again.
play tonight because he's going to watch the new episode of X-Men '97.
Oh, damn it! You're screwed. Yeah. Sorry, screwed. Made the right decision to not buy those tickets. Is there another Apple show that I should be committing to? Like, hey, when during the time that this show is running, get your Apple back and then watch all the other shows during that time.
No, I mean, I don't know.
Everybody tells me the morning show's wonderful. Everybody always there's enough, but none of them have captivated me enough to say I'm going to commit to Apple.
There's on Friday. There's a new show called Sugar with Colin Farrell, and he plays John Sugar. He's a PI in
That's on Apple.
On LA.
I don't think that's gonna be the one, dog. I don't think that's gonna be it. All right, Tubular was also.
Try my best for Apple here.
God bless you.
They owe me.
Tubular was also brought to you by Atman's Deli. Of course, Atman's Harbor Point now open. Go check them out. AtmansDeli.com to find the daily specials. It's everything you love about Atman's. The delicious corned beef piled high. All of the sandwiches, frankly. The desserts, the soups. Oh, it's all so good. Atman's Harbor Point now open. Go check them out and find the daily specials at AtmansDeli.com. All right, thanks today to Daniel Jeremiah. Thanks to Buck Showalter. Thanks also to Mike Locksley, as well as to Wes Brown. We'll get all of it up in the greatest hits section of the
Oh, my God, it's so good.
tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. Tomorrow we're going to have a couple of Baltimore natives that are both NFL draft prospects and both going to be drafted, as Chris Braswell will join us, the Pride of St. Francis, and then Jalen Green, who played down at Madison, right?
Yes.
Is that where it was?
James Madison.
Jalen Green will join us tomorrow as well. So
And then we'll talk to we'll start our weekly conversations with Bowie as their opening night is Friday night.
All right.
So Judd Fabian.
Judd Fabian will join us tomorrow. One of the top outfield prospects in the Orioles system. So looking forward to that. All right. Thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including Roost Chris, Live Casino and Hotel, Atman's Deli, A.J. Michaels, Guilford Hall Brewery, Royal Farms, Costas Inn, Glory Days Grill, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com, who, of course, proudly bring you countysportzone.com as well. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great Wednesday evening. Go Birds if they play. Duke sucks.